And just like that. Wait, goddamn it, AC. Okay. There we go. Awesome possum. Wait, no, go away, you. Wacha. Wacha. Sweet. And just like that, we are maybe kind of live. Except, yes, my audio is coming through here, so we should be good. Very nice. So, no programming tonight. Really just don't. I'm fucking tired of dealing with computers right now. So, for tonight, we're just going to play some Factorio. We're just going to chill. It's going to be a nice chill stream with some gaming. And I figured I'd get caught up on some podcasts I've been ignoring for a little bit. So, I'm kind of thinking about if I want to turn this into like a real thing. Maybe? Ooh, game capture isn't working. Why isn't game capture working? Alright. Debug time. Capture any full screen application. Do I change the order? Is that gonna do anything? Nope. Alright, I will just remove the game capture. Then it will add a display game capture. Okay. Any full screen application, capture a specific window, foreground window with hotkey. Yeah, I think I'll just do full. Okay. Maybe. There, okay, almost. And then if I move the camera up here, fucking killing it. All right, where do I want this? I want this to be here. That camera is way too fucking big. There we go. Is that gonna block anything? Nah, that should be good. Dope. Staying hydrated. So yeah, figured. Yeah, alrighty. Boom. So yeah. But yeah, no, thinking about kind of what what I want this stream to be kind of long term. Hopefully, I like doing politics stuff, but you know, the whole politics Twitch YouTube streamer space is super crowded, and so if this is going to be a real thing, kind of need to try to carve out like a niche or something. And so I figured a niche that would probably be just good for me in general. would be kind of going through more conservative media and all that. So right now we are going to be listening to the news and why it matters, which is a pretty far right podcast from the Blaze. So be listening to that while we play some Factorio. Maybe let me.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. Enjoy
from lifting Title 42. We've got all that and more coming up, and it all starts right now.
Okay, right now, what am I working on? Yeah, trying to get. I want to utilize all this coal I have down here. I want to turn this down just. Oh god, wrong way. There we go. So I want to utilize all this coal I've got down here. So utilizing that with this iron here, I'm hoping to get a big iron smelting area up here.
Chief researcher of the Glenbeck program, Jason Buttrell, who
so I'm working on that right now.
As usual.
For me.
You know it, girl.
So well in this lovely T-shirt that he has. That's okay though.
They have sleeves, so you're like,
yeah. Thanks for the sleeves, Jason. We've got Matthew Marsden, actor and producer extraordinaire, and we've got his first time on the program. Really excited to welcome Jeff Leach, who is of course Texas House of Representatives, a representative in District 67.
Sarah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Next time I'll wear a t-shirt.
What are you doing to me, man? I know. Walking all dapper and stuff, looking smart.
He's matching me, is what he's doing.
That's true.
It's going good.
We're like just a couple of bums.
Give me the beer. That's what we're at.
So I want to talk about, look, Twitter has been a very fun place for me. Personally, in the last 24 hours. I don't know if those of you out there who are on Twitter, who follow my tweets, you may have seen them. I'm just kind of tweeting all the things that you weren't supposed to say. And just, you know what? I'm a woman of the people, and I'm trying to do it for everyone to see what happens, just test the waters, because as we were talking about before the program, we noticed this very large influx of new followers for conservatives. The opposite was true for people on the left, at least they were reporting as much. But it just seemed like all of these new followers were trickling in, not sure what's going on there. We mentioned before the program, I want to get to the story about Jen Psaki, but we mentioned before the program, Jason, you were talking about.
So
what is it?
Cool.
What is it? Is it just they don't have any restrictions on bots anymore, so it's a bunch of bots? Is it, did they change whatever algorithm they were using to try to shadow ban all conservatives because they knew that they were about to pass it over to Elon Musk and they don't want to get found out?
Okay, so something that I think everyone needs to keep in mind, at least, for the next several months, if not a year, is that, Elon Musk won't actually take Twitter private for, several months now. It's not that they, shook hands on a deal and now all of a sudden it's a private company. And Musk is able to make every change that he wants to make. It's going to take several months, if not a year plus, to actually switch over. So any changes that they're talking about right now are going to be pretty, I don't think superficial is not the right word, but non-existent. Unless what they're saying, right now, the conspiracy seems to be that Twitter knows that Musk is going to, peel behind the curtain and expose all of their terrible, evil practices that they've been doing. And so, as kind of a preemptive, they're unshadow banning everyone. But I think what's, far more likely is just that, with Musk buying Twitter and all the conservatives talking about how Twitter is now finally, a free speech platform, it's just pulling in a lot of conservative voices that probably never bothered to get on Twitter, but now since everyone on the right is talking about how great and amazing Elon Musk is for saving Twitter, you're just going to get a big influx of users.
What could it possibly be? And I'm probably approaching maybe 50,000 new followers in less than 24 hours, and I just can't imagine that it's just bots.
How many?
Almost 50,000, I think.
So I have to one up you. I'm going to have to say I've gained 70,000 followers since then.
Really?
Yeah, because chief researchers, head writers get a lot of followers on Twitter. I mean, it's
300 million.
Oh, okay. I see how it's going.
Its size doesn't matter.
That's what I've been told. That's crazy. What's weird though about, because that is the argument, or some people are, not the argument. Some people are just offering solutions that maybe just people are starting to run back. But I'm getting tweets that are being retweeted and liked and then follows after from I think it was the first presidential debate back in 2017. So they're just now seeing these tweets. That can't be just people coming back, because you were saying that there was another pretty big actor that was also.
Yeah, Mark Hamill was like, I don't know what's happening, but they seem to have lost 8,000 followers. I'm like, welcome to our world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
free
funny
market's
seeing
a
the
bitch.
meltdown, it really is. But the thing that gets me, and I mean, we've spoken about this many times, right? If you are comfortable in the marketplace of ideas, right? If you are, I don't understand. And by the way, did you see, what's his name? Talcum. What's his name?
Sean King.
I'm leaving, and then he came back. He's like, I'm not leaving. But if you are comfortable, right, with what you have to say and your stance, then what is wrong with having, like, debate the issues? Let's have a conversation. There's nobody around here that's going to be like, oh, we're going to debate this. We're going to debate any issues you have. But what we're seeing now is they were definitely stifling us, I think. So I don't think there's not all of a sudden like
right now there's no evidence to like suggest that, other than some conservatives. I remember saying that like, oh, I have X million followers, but only got this many likes, and so like the conclusion that they come to is just that, oh, like Twitter must be secretly twisting the gears underneath. And like, as far as I know, there's no real evidence has been presented to say that is actually the case. That right now it just seems to be, well, I'm not having as much of a reach as I think I should have, therefore I must be getting shadow banned and Twitter must be suppressing my posts, which Twitter kind of has every right to. Their algorithm is going to be set up in a way that it will kind of maximize the user engagement, not necessarily be like a strict chronological showing of information. So if you tweet something that has like low engagement during, like, I would assume whatever like initial window they have set up for like measuring initial engagement on any kind of post, if the likes and the retweets are real low, then the algorithm is probably going to suppress it in some way, but it's not going to be like a targeted at conservative thing. That's just going to be a low engagement thing that would, like, I would assume it would happen like across the board on any political person's tweet that gets low engagement in like the first few initial minutes. It would be interesting to see like if you could go through and do just like a real basic compare and contrast between like Democrat tweets and their like engagement to follower ratio and compare that to like conservative tweets. And then you could pretty easily check to see like, okay, like, is this actually something that happens more often with conservatives, or is this something that happens more often or just happens evenly across like all political parties? So yeah, that might be interesting. Could turn out to be true. Probably not, but maybe.
50,000 people just went, hey,
and it is insanely infuriating seeing all of like the liberal leftists right now complain about how like this is the end of free speech. That is such a fucking stupid claim. It was absolute bullshit when Trump got banned, and then all the conservatives were talking about how this was the end of free speech and the president is being silenced. And it's bullshit now that it's held by a private company and that Elon Musk might just ban anyone who he doesn't like. Like, it was bullshit back, 2 years ago when Trump got kicked off, and it's bullshit now.
Oh, well, I'm going to get on this, and all of a sudden they find you immediately.
Where's my stuff?
I think that
there it is.
There was this algorithm, and I think that Elon will come out and he'll say, hey, listen, this is what I found. I think they're panicking right now.
What a difference. Like, we want the people that are on their side that are the most extreme, like the ones. I don't care if you're saying anti-Jewish stuff. I want you to say it as long as it's not violent on a public forum, so we know who you are.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to shut you down. We're not. That's a big difference between all of us.
It's one of the big differences between the right and the left today that Republicans increasingly seem to be so comfortable having these tough conversations, including conversations that may be risky for us, conversations the right hasn't been willing to entertain, and the left seems so.
That's a little. I wonder what conversation was the right not willing to have. before now that, they might now feel a little bit freer to start saying, I'm really curious as to what that conversation is.
I'm fearful of having those conversations, and which I think makes it a really interesting time for folks that are in the middle, even moderate Democrats who aren't afraid of having those conversations.
Do they exist anymore? Are they still here?
They do, but they don't have a home. They don't have a place anymore.
Yeah.
Political refugees,
so I think it presents a really unique opportunity for us as conservatives to talk about what we believe in, but more importantly, why we believe it and why we think our ideas are good for this country, including the protection of free speech at all costs.
Well, certainly, I mean, if you're talking about these moderate Democrats, these people in the middle, if they are trying to find their home and they're listening to people who are welcoming of their opinion and they're listening to people who basically just plug their ears and throw a temper tantrum, if I'm a reasonable adult, I know which side I'm going to.
Sure.
So.
And if it's funny, and if you're not following Sarah, please do, because she's been very funny over the past 24 hours.
Just the past 24 hours.
Well, just generally, but
the kindergarten cop quote was great.
But the thing is the stuff that you say. I mean, some of it, you are poking the bear, but a lot of the times.
It's all true.
It is all true, and it's actually not extreme at all.
Right.
This is the crazy thing. It's just like saying things that are the news. That's your truth.
I like that you pointed that out, because it was kind of sad to me that I'm saying things that are like, men can't have periods. Only women can get pregnant. And people are like, oh my God, people are reaching out to me, you're my hero. I'm like, how wild is it that we live in a day and age where I'm not saying anything controversial and somehow people are just they're craving it.
On that point, on our TV show last week, we aired this thing. It was from 3 years ago, and it was like a debate between a panel on the Bill Maher show. And it was Dennis Prager was the guy that, of course, they were all ganging up on. But Dennis Prager said, what kind of society are we living in today when you're saying men can menstruate? And he was still trying to make a point, but everything stopped because the entire audience erupted in laughter. And Bill Maher had this crazy look on his face, like, you're a nut job. No one's saying that. And they made fun of him for it. Nowadays, like what you were tweeting, if you said that nowadays, well, a month ago on Twitter or a few weeks ago, yeah, you'd probably get banned or at least canceled into oblivion. That's how far we've come from then. It's insane.
I mean, that is kind of how progress works. I guess, this isn't surprising. This is just the general, conservative, I don't want to say talking point, but belief that, there is no separation between sex and gender, and that these two things are, identically the same. Which is, nothing new.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right, so to all of these points, I wanna bring up the White House. Jen Psaki, the of course White House press secretary, the poor man's peppermint patty. Jen Psaki responded to Elon Musk buying Twitter. She kind of floated, there should be some reforms to combat misinformation on social media. Here's that.
Just a quick one on the breaking news, Twitter agreeing to let Elon Musk go through this purchase. Do you have a response to that? And does the White House have any concern that this new agreement might have President Trump back on the platform?
Well, I'm not going to comment on a specific transaction. What I can tell you as a general matter, no matter who owns or runs Twitter, the president has long been concerned about the power of large social media platforms, what they have, the power they have over our everyday lives, has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause. He has been a strong supporter of fundamental reforms to achieve that goal, including reforms to Section 230, enacting antitrust reforms, requiring more transparency, and more. And he's encouraged that there's bipartisan interest in Congress. In terms of what hypothetical policies might happen, I'm just not going to speak to that at this point in time.
Jeff, I want to go to you first, being that you are, of course, a lawmaker. It's interesting because I feel like Joe Biden should be a little bit more grateful for the fact that the social media censorship was a big reason why he still had so many supporters, crushing anyone who said anything about Hunter Biden and his laptop. And, it's just, there's no appreciation.
Well, I think the quote was that she's fearful, maybe the president's fearful of these social media platforms unregulated. What they should be saying is being honest, saying we're fearful of the First Amendment. They're fearful of the Constitution. And our goal, our fundamental goal as policymakers, as elected officials, is to protect the rights and liberties of the people. The fundamental rights and liberties, the right to freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the right to life. That's our job, is to protect those, even when we disagree with the folks who are on the other side saying things we don't necessarily agree with. And what I hear there is the White House saying we don't like the First Amendment. We all know that, but they're saying that publicly from the press briefing room at the White House.
Yeah.
It's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
All right. So for anyone who's, unaware, the First Amendment only applies to the government in limiting your free speech. Twitter can do whatever the fuck it wants. If Twitter wants to ban anyone who is even slightly conservative, I think that is totally within their right. I think it's totally fine if they start kicking out, if Elon Musk right now starts kicking off any and everyone who is even slightly critical of him, now that once he becomes like the actual owner and everything, totally within his right to do so. He has every freedom to run his personal company however he sees fit. And that there is absolutely no, at least to my understanding of the law, there's absolutely no First Amendment principle at play here.
Not the First Amendment, don't like the Second Amendment.
No.
I'm not sure they like very many amendments, actually.
Well, they're just terrified about November. I mean, this is what it's all about, right? And they should be, because it's going to be a complete landslide. And when you think about it, I mean, what they're saying about how much money Twitter really makes, it's not really a fund-driven thing. Elon's not. I mean, he will make money because now it's going to go up because more people are going to use it and all. But the truth of the matter is
more people might use it. Again, they were saying earlier that there's been this mad influx of followers for conservative accounts on Twitter, which is great for them. There's also been a huge decrease. I don't think it's been quite as large. Okay, we're back? Yeah, we're back. Fuck. Cox is the worst. Really bad internet. Oh, fuck. Alright, so, yeah. We'll see if we actually get to keep streaming. Because, yeah, it looks like my internet keeps dropping out. Yeah, and there we go again. CPU usage is at 1%, so I'm totally fine there. It's mainly just my internet speed that is being some poop right now. Kilobit per second. Yeah, my kilobits per second is just... Yeah, my upload speed... 30. Just doing an in-browser speed test. And my upload speed is damn near non-existent. Maybe I do have a little bit of upload. It is real bad, so I apologize. We'll see if it continues. But yeah, I've been having just general shitty internet, which is the main reason I haven't been streaming at all lately. But we will try to persevere. Boop, boop, boo, doo, boo. Okay, where was I? Totally lost my train of thought now. Yeah. So yeah, if Elon Musk wants to ban every person who is even slightly critical of him, all the more power to do that. You do not have a constitutional right to use Twitter.
How important it is. Look at, and they controlled it for years and years and years. And I would just step back to when Trump first, came on the scene. They did not expect that. If he hadn't have come out and if he hadn't used Twitter, I mean, he literally jiu-jitsu'd them, right, and used their thing against them. And of course, that's why he's gone.
Yeah.
But this is one of the greatest victories, I think. I mean, look, there's a lot of people that turn around and say, well, we don't know, he's transhumanism and all this with Elon. I'm like, just take the win now. Can we just take the win? Can we just have one of them, the Bond villains, be on our side for once?
Well, right, and I think that it's important to just draw two distinctions here, right? you can take the win and say, you know what, he's kind of a kooky dude. I definitely would not say that he's red-pilled, but he's with us on this issue, which is so important. So it, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if he is on our side on everything, as long as he believes in the right to exchange these ideas. Who cares about the rest? But
Holy shit. This right here is why fucking liberals never win and why the left just eats itself into oblivion, because conservatives are more than happy to jerk off Musk when he's on their side and say how great he is, how he's a defender for conservative values, even though they will shit all over global warming and talk about how Tesla isn't actually that good and how EV cars are worse than gas cars and all the other bullshit lies that they spread because they have a second grader's understanding of science. But when they find alignment, they jump on board and they lavish them in praise and accolades. Like, fuck. Conservatives are so much better at this.
I do think it's important to make the distinction. Like, I wouldn't call him a conservative. Like, he's the founder of Tesla, so I'm not sure that he's like going to be just voting, just marking all Republicans straight ticket.
We're not asking for a conservative to be in charge of these tech companies. We're just asking for someone that believes in the U.S. Constitution and will operate it as such. I think it's interesting that now they want to talk about Section 230. I mean, we didn't really hear that topic from them before, especially during like New York Post censorship and all that stuff. But even still, if they do talk about Section 230, maybe it's my tinfoil hat, but I still get worried about what they have plans for Section 230. Like, so you've heard people like Jack Dorsey say they have to have 230, otherwise they won't be able to exist. And so anybody doesn't know what 230 is, it basically gives government protection against other people publishing on their platform.
Yeah. What she really should have said is here from the White House, our position is that we're more focused on issues that really matter. You look at all over the world in the countries where people don't have the right to say what they want, freedom of speech, they're literally under the threat for their very lives when they speak out. Here in this country, our biggest threat is our southern border, our porous southern border, our 1,200-mile border with Mexico. That's what we as a White House are concerned about, not whether people can say what they want or not.
But they're not concerned about that. Clearly, they don't care about the things that matter to
Which is the reason November is going to be such a bloodbath for the liberal progressives in this country. Their priorities are just out of whack.
What's crazy is she's basically hinting at more regulation is what she's hinting at. And I've heard, I think it was last week, Obama was meeting at like a misinformation council when he's one of the leaders in misinformation. Pretty much the government, I mean, at the same time, Hillary Clinton, I think it was the exact same day, was trumpeting that, what is that, it's some act they're doing over in Europe. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like it's something so that they can regulate more.
I'm
American.
You got the accent, you know? But yeah, there's some act that they just agreed to over in Europe that lets them put more regulation on misinformation. So you see this from both, sides of the Atlantic right now. The government wants to be the gatekeeper for what is or is not misinformation, and that is incredibly dangerous to me.
Yeah. Before we go to break, I do want to play this MSNBC host, Ari Melber, who is finally, again, just coming to the realization all of a sudden that an entire political party could be, banned from social media, that elections maybe possibly could be swayed from social media censorship and the way that that company is set up. Watch.
You own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn
100%.
down the reach of their stuff
President of the
and turn
United
off the
States.
reach of something else.
I don't know.
The rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election.
No.
Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
Well, it's a good thing that hasn't happened yet. Wow. Because as we know, Joe Biden, most popular president ever, 81 million votes, obviously good thing.
Yes.
We hadn't seen that happen yet. I want to play one more. I know we're going long here, but it's okay because we got to make fun of Mrs. Potato Head herself, Brian Seltzer, who he's just wondering, like, this is open Twitter, free speech Twitter is like going to a party with like, you're just free to do whatever you want. Who wants to do something like that, Punch?
Look, who knows? I think that's an example of a broader question for Twitter, which is, if you get invited to something where there are no rules, where there is total freedom for everybody, do you actually want to go to that party, or are you going to decide to stay home? And that's a question for Twitter users.
Yeah.
Some Twitter users might love the idea there's going to be absolutely no moderation and no rules at all. Others might not want to be anywhere near that. Am I
Yeah.
crazy, Matt?
No, you're right. It's
Yeah, that's welcome to free markets. Right now, I think we already have a website like that. It's called 4chan. Like, absolutely. Like, Elon Musk will make whatever decision he wants. With it being private, like, maybe there's a lot more freedom now in that, like, he doesn't really have to worry about, like, shareholder. But, like, I think given how much he seems to be, at least from my understanding, like, this buy is heavily leveraged in Tesla stock. And so it seems like the fate of these two companies, Tesla and Twitter, are going to be somewhat tied together now. So I would assume he is, even though, like, he says, oh, it's not about, like, the money, it's just about free speech. It's probably still going to be at least a little bit about the money. Given that, he's spending so much on this. At some level, it will be about the money. So we'll see. But, yeah.
Brian Stelter's he's taking his ball and he's going home. Who wants to go to a party where you're free to do whatever you want, Jeff?
I don't want to go to a party where he's at.
Look at their faces, though. They're kind of like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Dude, this is why no one from this company parties with you. You're not invited to the...
But it's a genuine question. You see that, like, do they have absolutely no self-awareness at all?
No, they don't.
I mean, do they have this little thing where, like, they download all the stuff that they do? They like, block it out of their mind. Like, oh, no, Trump wasn't, like, banned off the platform. That's gone.
Yes, I don't think
I don't understand it. Really don't. And these are people that are elected, right? A lot of the people that are like, I have no explanation for it. I mean, is it just... Do they really believe it, or are they lying? I just want to know.
I can't believe they're this dumb. I just think they're that stupid. I'm sorry. I do. I wish I had a better answer for you. Well, you know what? I'll reflect and maybe come up with something else.
Can you circle back?
Yeah.
On that one.
I'm not going to circle back, okay? But I am going to thank our sponsor, Moinkbox. So Moinkbox, those of you, look, I'm at a table with a bunch of men, okay? So I'm going to talk for a second about meat, all right? But not just... You guys, stop.
Is it
Stop.
that kind of show?
You are not a biologist.
No, I'm talking about Moink.
Misgender
gives
me.
you access to the freshest, most sustainably sourced meat, and Moink is a difference that you can miss out. It was a U.S. district judge in Louisiana who said that he will grant this temporary restraining order. By the way, just in a cute little twist of events, this
God damn it, no.
was appointed by...
There's a gap in my defenses, apparently.
So I want to play for you.
Oh, fuck.
NBC News reporting
So
on
much
this,
shit. No.
170,000 migrants just waiting on the border. I want
Running as fast as I can. Let's go.
For more than 2 years, many migrants have been denied entry because of Title 42, a public health policy enacted during the pandemic by the Trump administration, which expedited deportations back to Mexico. U.S. officials tell NBC News 170,000
Damn it, no. Why is everything dying?
ready to cross, while the White House lifts the Title 42 restriction on May 23rd.
So, Matt, you
Can you say
mentioned
stop
earlier,
for a minute here?
People, are they listening to what's coming out of their mouth? Do they lack the self-awareness? What is it exactly? I have the same question here with Jen Psaki, who seems to blame Trump for trying to invest in a wall that was just never going to work, because I guess their solution is working much better. Watch this.
You talked about having a humanitarian, sort of system in place to deal with people coming across and increase vaccinations and that kind of thing. But in terms of, law enforcement presence at the border.
Well, I would just say if we just dial it back a few years to kind of what we inherited here, the former president invested billions of dollars in a border wall that was never going to work or be effective, instead of working towards comprehensive immigration reform. As part of the president's proposal he put forward on his first day in office, he proposed investing in smarter security at the border, something he'd be happy to work with governors on, and certainly we're open to having that conversation whenever they're ready to do that.
Jeff, I have a feeling you might have something to say here.
It just drives me crazy. We're being invaded, and Washington just is burying their heads in the sand. And that's why the state of Texas has used our own revenue, billions and billions of dollars of our own state revenue, to do what the federal government is failing to do. And in fact, the Speaker of the House today, the Texas Speaker of the House, is in Washington handing out receipts for invoices to the federal government to pay us back. You're double paying for border security right now, federal government and state. It drives me crazy. And
for the checkpoints that caught like 0 immigrants and 0 drugs.
I'm fine with that, but at the end of the day, there's got to be action. There has to be action. And unfortunately, until we get a new president in the White House and a new Congress, that's not going to happen. Which again is another reason I think November is going to be such a bloodbath, because this is an issue that conservatives, I should say Republicans and Democrats, care a lot about, is security.
Trump won on this.
That's
I mean,
right.
if the border crisis wouldn't happen at that time, he probably wouldn't even be president at this point. But he was one of the only ones that was actually coming out and saying anything on it. Like, she drives me crazy when she says, "Oh, they have no comprehensive immigration reform." That's not what they want either. Those are the things that they say so that they can take the moral high ground on anything. They don't care
what's
about
happening
it.
in South Texas and our border communities right now in terms of the electoral politics. Trump is probably the highest performing Republican down there on the border among Hispanic Democrats and moderate Republicans. I mean, he won a lot of those border communities that Republicans have never won before.
Yeah.
There's a substantial investment.
What do I want to look up? First, pause this. Texas 2020 election results. So, okay. Boom, we got that. And then we got Texas 2016 election results. Alright, we're gonna do half screen, except none of you watching can see this. Are you gonna work? Is my internet shitting out again? It sure is. Fuck you. Stupid fucking internet. Okay, come on. Piece of shit, CNN. Okay, so... Man, why can't I just get some decent results? Oh, okay, that's primary. Because CNN does, this page works just fine. I just wish... Okay, so like Border County, like, okay, so there is a little bit of blue, but like the majority here is pretty blue. That's Zapata. And this is Senate, House. All 400 people. Okay, and then why? Fucking piece of shit. Fuck you, CNN. Okay, we'll just do it like this. Alright, Cameron. A, B, C, D. What are these? Trump. Okay, number, percentage, Clinton. Johnson. Okay, so number and percentage. So Cameron split 64-32. All right, definitely a hit. Hidalgo 28-68. Another pretty big drop. 52. Let's just do eyeballs. 61. 51-30. Maverick. Okay, so there definitely is a bit of a swing. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there certainly was a bit of a swing, but definitely not like the red wave. But they are right. Yeah, it definitely did swing. Oh yeah, it did flipped. Valverde. Ooh, real close there. Trial Brewster. 200 vote. Okay. Okay. Now, all right, I'll give them some credit. I'll give them to their credit. Oh no, why is... See, I switch back to this, and now it's fucking black. Like, okay, now it's back. Okay, I need to figure out why that's happening. Another issue for another day. But okay, I will give credit where credit is due. There is definitely a bit of a swing to... Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me again. Towards Trump there on the border, states and Texas.
Because those folks, I mean, their communities are being overrun by folks who are here illegally, and they're voting with their feet.
And can I also say that Title 42, we're doing a show next week on the border and what's happening, some of the consequences. Record numbers. I think it was 1 million, just 1 million encounters in 6 months. That's just encounters. That's not the ones that slipped by and they didn't get, which is, I think, a 20-year shattering record. It's absolutely insane. So we could be looking at 2 million by the end of the fiscal year, which is larger than DFW. It's absolutely insane. It's not sustainable. But Title 42 is basically, many Border Patrol people, many Customs Border Patrol people are saying that they've already being told to not to not even think about Title 42 when it comes to the triangle. You know, was it El Salvador, all those over there. When they come down through, they're just saying, just don't even worry about Title 42. Just go ahead and pretend it doesn't even exist. So even though the judge said this now, I want to know what people like Mayorkas and what they are telling their people privately are ordering the Border Patrol to do.
Because that's what's going to matter.
Because that's what's actually going to matter.
Yeah. No.
I mean, look, for me personally, it's extremely frustrating because I took every step to come into this country the right way.
You had to wait in line.
And it drives me crazy. And listen, I'd say I'd do it all over again and again and again the same way. I'm very honored that I've been able to come to this country and become an American citizen. But this just drives me completely crazy. Like, why are we even having a discussion about having to pass a bill to stop them from coming over? It's called a sovereign country that should have a border, and everybody else. You try and come up into Mexico, on the southern route, you are not getting in. There's no way they will let you in. It just drives me insane, and that's without people say, oh, it's a humanitarian thing. All you got to do is, we've spoken to Jocko about it multiple times. I mean, there are rapes, there are killings, there's horrendous things going on there. So they really don't care. And COVID. If COVID was the threat that it really was, that they made it out to be, right? The global pandemic is going to kill everyone, and they're like, hey, just come on, like not testing anyone, not really shutting it down.
Okay, but COVID's not this big pandemic anymore. Like, we have vaccinations, we have, I don't know, retrovirals, I think is what they're called, for like general virus treatment. Like, we have a bunch of ways to treat COVID now. And so, like, we're clearly not in the pandemic anymore. And so, if Title 42 was a pandemic measure for public health, then if that public health threat is no longer in place, then we should not have Title 42 in place anymore.
Because even the amount of people they're stopping right now, there's still, as you said, millions of people coming across, right? Just take a second and think for the bill of goods that we've been sold for the past 2 years, that have wrecked businesses, that has done all this damage in communities. And they're still letting people across the board. It's just, again, we speak about this a lot, about the hypocrisy of how they'll say one thing and do something completely different. And Americans like, hang on a minute, this doesn't fit, like it doesn't work, like what you're saying is a lie, and they're getting sicker and sicker and sick of it. And it's going to get to a point where it has to break. And this isn't even, like saying about the border, the towns around the border, they're desperately unhappy. They're afraid for their own safety. They're not happy. And this is Hispanic communities like, hey, come and help us out, you know? It's a disaster.
To that point, the government on one hand is trying to reinstate the TSA mask mandate. On the other hand, they're trying to get rid of...
So the mask mandates thing is really just a precedent argument. I am willing to bet all of the money is in the world that, because it's supposed to expire like fucking this week, or next week, I think. And so it's obvious, it seems rather obvious to me, at least, that the point of trying to appeal that ruling isn't so much that it's like vital for public health and safety that the mandate stays in place, but rather that given the precedent that this could set for the TSA to set future public health and safety measures, it's important that it gets appealed. And so that's the reason, not that it's like we're still in some public health crisis that we need to address. Come on.
Title 42.
Right. Yeah.
How does that
Any
reconcile?
sense? Yeah, it doesn't
makes
make
no
any
sense.
Jeff, I want to ask you. Look, I realize that the federal government really hinders Texas's ability to be able to fight all of this off. But can Texas be doing?
Have fun listening to this.
more
I need to refill my
push
drink.
back on this?
Well, we've done a lot, but yes, we can always be doing more, whether it's in terms of personnel, technology, resources. Our National Guard is doing such a great job. I mean, the Border Patrol down there, these guys are in many cases fighting a war down there, and without the support. Right. We lost a National Guardsman this week. I mean, selflessly jumped into the river to save migrants. And that shows you the heart of the people of Texas and the people of this country who are down there.
Who ended up being criminals.
That's right. But
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, they got big hearts, and they lack the support of their federal government. So from the state level, we're doing everything we can to support them, Sarah. We can always be doing more. We're going to devote billions of dollars to finish the wall in cases where it's not finished, and put technology, support our law enforcement.
All right, I need to get my iron chain.
To protect those border communities and to hear the federal government talk about humanitarian aid.
Back there. I need to get a car.
A
Start driving that around. Spending way too much time just walking back and forth like
That
this.
is not compassionate to either side, to folks who are coming here or to folks who are here now. It's a strong border is actually compassionate, and it's unfortunate that the progressive radicals in Washington, including what's her name? What do you call her? Strawberry shortcake or
poor man's peppermint patty.
Yeah, poor man's peppermint patty, including her. They just don't realize it because they haven't been to the border.
Yeah.
The president has not been to the border.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think he did go over the border when he went down and fought in the Spanish-American War back then. That was a while ago.
All right, that's pretty good.
He was there then. You know
Well,
what?
he doesn't remember it, so it doesn't matter.
He doesn't remember it. He doesn't remember breakfast this morning either.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back.
What was crazy?
And the murder percentage.
Right during that time, they were being ambushed while we were telling people to take a kneel, to kneel down because we needed to defund the police.
He
Why is this
misspoke.
happening? Did someone make them targets? I wonder. This is amazing.
I'm not working on trying to get more of these. Need all of those.
It's a pretty sturdy table. I don't know.
I'll do it.
I don't know.
I should set up just a little makeshift.
It's a phenomenon.
Yeah, the
That's
word
what he says,
phenomenon. I mean,
phenomenon.
that's shocking.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about these people. I mean, is it kind of like, what is it, the Peter Principle, where where you rise up? I mean, is he that dumb?
Yes.
And it's not just him. It's not just him. I mean, even here in conservative red Texas, we have mayors like the mayor of Austin who are at war with their police officers. They've indicted, I think just a couple weeks ago, 17 to 20 police officers for actions taken in the line of duty that would be reasonable anywhere else. But they're attacking, they've defunded their police. State had to step in and say, you cannot do this.
Need to get a giant
so it's
F
not just
that I can just hold up to
Washington, it's not just liberals in the Northeast.
Be like
It's even here in
F to
Texas, too,
doubt.
which is why we got to be vigilant and fight back against it.
Could you submit a bill to change the name of Austin to Little Los Angeles? Something like that?
It's the blueberry and the tomato soup, as they say. The People's Republic of Austin. It's pretty shocking. And Austin's such a great place, too, that's being ruined by radical progressives.
But the sad thing is that what we're not getting honesty from these people. And you understand, like when you look at the head of the FBI, it's the FBI. So he's the figurehead, right? So you want him to be truthful and to come up with answers,
Where are the most
like logical answers, like
closest
everyone
ones?
watches CSI.
Iron
right?
plate and gears.
The bar has been raised now on cops. So why doesn't he just come out and say the truth? And it's because it's a political position. It's not about being they say the top cop. It's politics. He's got a press head. I spoke to my friend Tim Clemente, and he told me that very, very often the rank and file are great, like all the agents are great, but as you start going up and up the ranks, it just gets more and more incompetent.
Yeah, and it's the mainstream media, even just as bad. Like 60 Minutes only just now heard that cops are being ambushed?
Right.
This is over a year old.
Yeah.
They only just now want to discuss it now, when they're not in the middle of an election or who else knows what. But come on.
Well, next week their special is about the first man on the moon.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I mean,
Have you heard about this? Have you seen this?
I want to throw another story into the mix here. You guys, chuckleheads over here. Republican Oklahoma Representative Markwayne Mullen is introducing legislation that would punish abortionists who perform partial birth abortions with 5 years to a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole. This is called the Partial Birth Abortion is Murder Act. I love it because it's like it's very. I like when the title of the act is exactly like that's all you need. It's very, very clear. Partial birth abortion is murder and should be treated as such. Abortion is murder and should be treated as such. But so this is apparently unlikely to pass, which I find to be baffling. Right now, they do have the Partial Birth Abortion Act of 2003, and the punishment is far less. So it's you face fines and/or imprisonment for up to 2 years. So he wants to maximize that punishment here. I just find it baffling that in a place like Oklahoma, I'm reading that this is unlikely to pass.
It's, look, I'm as pro-life as they come from the womb to the tomb, and Texas is really leading the charge. I was the author of the Born Alive Infant Protection Bill. And
unless it's the death penalty, then they're totally okay with taking a life.
Texas, and one of the authors of the Heartbeat Bill this past session, and really proud of what we've done here in helping and loving on the women who find themselves in these difficult situations, but going after the abortionists who take advantage of them and others who coerce them and talk them into these life-altering decisions. And so we've done this in Texas, not only the abortionists, but those in the room who assist the abortionists. And so it's surprising to me as well that Oklahoma can't get that over the finish line.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be able to.
Yeah, godly, Matt.
I just think it's great that you use the words to describe what it really is.
Partial birth abortion is murder.
One of my pet peeves is pro-choice. I have no idea why we're okay with that.
Yeah.
100% of people who are pro-choice have been born.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Here,
brilliant fucking deduction. Like I did. Oh God, I don't understand like what argument that is supposed to like. How is that supposed to convince anyone? No, I don't know. I got nothing.
Their mother decided not to have an abortion.
Leave a comment down below if you know why that's supposed to be a good argument.
Marketing, which I think is what you're getting at, is they just change it to make it sound a little bit more appealing. But we're talking about murder, is what we're talking about. And I'd say, my stance on this, and I think we're the same. I didn't know you authored that. We're going to have a big hug after the show, I think. But from conception.
Why am I walking?
All the way
Where's my
until,
car?
Until birth.
I have 2 cars up there.
Now, this is the reason why they're so iffy on it, and they have to change the language on some of these bills, like don't say gay or whatever. You know what I mean? Like completely just change the name of the bill so it sounds like something different. But on this, we're talking about life, and they're not going to be able to finagle their way around this. They're always going to sound wishy-washy because at the end of the day, they know that that baby is alive. It doesn't matter what effing stage it is in life, it's alive.
Yeah.
And being pro-life is pro-woman too. Since we passed the Heartbeat Bill, thousands of women, Texas women, have been born. Little baby girls have been born in the state of Texas. And for the left to argue as well that we don't care about women's health, look, the state of Texas has done everything I just talked about. We've also increased services for women's health, breast and cervical cancer screenings. The Texas Healthy Women's Program has just opened up services for women all across this state.
Oh, but Planned Parenthood does all this.
But that's what the left says, and they're so wrong about it. They're so wrong about they're lying to the American people, and we've done a lot of good. The pro-life cause is winning in this country. It is winning, and the ball's moving forward, and hopefully the United States Supreme Court will sooner than later repeal Roe v. Wade and make it a thing of the past. I think that's on the horizon.
Amen. And again, thank you for all of your work on that in the state of Texas.
Me and a lot of other really great folks.
Well, we appreciate all of you. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll be right back.
So when is that ruling or that judgment coming? That's soon, right?
The Fifth Circuit just today ruled that that one of the key provisions of the bill
The highest criminal court in Texas on Monday ordered a halt to the execution of a Hispanic mother of 14 convicted of killing her 2-year-old child more than a decade ago. This is, of course, Melissa Lucio. And look, we just had a conversation about being pro-life. And we've talked about this before on the show. I think that it's a very interesting conversation and debate to have when you're talking about being pro-life and you're talking about the death penalty existing. Jeff, you know, it's funny when we tried to book you on the program, this was not, like, you have been working on this. This has been a project of yours trying to draw attention to this case because you say there is enough there that it needs to be relooked at, and we don't need to be killing, this would be the first Hispanic woman to be executed in Texas. We don't need to be killing her until we make sure that we have, you know, everything is on the up and up, and we have overturned anything that we could to make sure that we have the truth.
We just got to, you know, double check to make sure that we're killing the right person.
Well, I'll just give you the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, please.
You just put it very well. We pro-life conservatives, we care about protecting innocent life at all costs, from the womb to the tomb.
Okay.
And I have historically been a death penalty supporter in the most heinous cases, and I remain a death penalty supporter. But
fucking hypocrite.
Upon us ensuring that the person who's
notice how everyone who supports the death penalty hasn't died. Curious, isn't it?
Actually guilty. And in Miss Lucio's case, the system failed her at every turn. There are substantial questions about her guilt. Half of the original jury is now saying, look, there was stuff left out of the trial. There's new evidence that's come since. If we had it to do all over again, there's no way we would have convicted her. Just all these problems of the system failing her. And so I felt it incumbent upon me, and there's a vast number of other pro-life conservative death penalty supporters who've said, this is not right. We cannot do this. We've got to push the pause button and just ensure a new trial, as you said. That's all we've done. The Court of Criminal Appeals did the right thing. She's going to get her new day in court. Look, in this country, we can disagree on issues. We're pretty divided right down the middle, or at least that's what the mainstream media tells us we are. But at the end of the day, we should all agree that we need a government we can trust, and that is trustworthy and fair and reliable. And the system failed her. The system was broken, but we were able to fix it. So that's why I spoke up.
No, fuck, let's die.
It is interesting too, because I say this often with, I'm a death penalty supporter as well, in the most heinous cases, as you mentioned, but I say the same thing about, we were just talking about policing, right? It's the same thing with police, is that I traditionally, historically, have been a huge supporter of police, but if you are a supporter of police, you have to call out the bad ones to make sure that the entire policing unit stays good and doesn't rot. And so I just think with all these things, it's just so important that we make sure that we are doing our due diligence before we rush into something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like the left's version of at least the police matter has been, you know, if there's a few bad apples, if there's a few certain cases are questionable, or if they're bad, then the entire system is systemically broken, or whatever. Which I think that's how they see our country in general, is systemically broken. We're not arguing if there is a case, obviously, where a police operates badly or behaves badly, then he should be punished for that. The judicial system is exactly the same. There's multiple cases where, you know, we've seen there's corrupt
women can be shitty cops too.
District attorneys or what have you. That have hid evidence, have made it go their way. I mean, obviously
that's exactly what happened in this case.
That's what I've seen. So for this one, so I'm also a death penalty supporter in the most heinous cases. But on this, for the death penalty to be used, it's got to be a cut and dry case. It is black and white. Something actually, you know, there is no question.
Fucking hypocrites, every last one of them.
In this case, I mean, it looked like they weren't even admitting newer information as far as like analyzing like the wounds on the child.
Right.
You know way more than this than I do. I've just read a little bit about it.
There were so many problems, so many.
But they didn't even look at then, or the prosecutors didn't even admit that in the very beginning. What are you doing there? I mean, that sounds like a clear case that they're like, hey, there's an open case. We want to get it shut, you know, just to make it look good on our little board here, and then move on to the next one.
Classic Texas.
The original prosecutor is now actually behind bars serving time for federal corruption and bribery charges.
Oh wow!
But the biggest problem in the case among all of them is she had woefully ineffective assistance of counsel, which is a constitutional right for everybody, no matter what you come from, how you vote. what you look like. You are guaranteed effective assistance of counsel, and her attorney, in my opinion, should be disbarred. He's the worst attorney I've ever seen in my life. And so, but it's risky for a Republican to speak out against a death penalty case. But as I spoke out more and more, it was amazing how many conservatives and Republicans said, you know what, you're right on this. You're right. We cannot stand for this injustice. All we're asking for is to push the pause button. And going back to, the whole Twitter thing, it's okay for us to engage in these conversations even when we might disagree. We should be open-minded. We know what our values are. We don't compromise our core convictions, but we're going to talk about them and not be afraid to have these difficult conversations.
Yeah, Matt.
Well, I just think that conservatives, religious people on the whole, understand that we have a broken nature. Right? People have a broken nature. So corruption, we're all susceptible to sin, corruption, whatever. So we shouldn't be completely straight on one thing and say, look, this is an absolute, right? Like you're saying, like, oh no, we have to be completely pro-death penalty on everything, and we're not going to analyze it, because we should understand that there is corruption. Like you're saying, the left kind of says all cops are bad. Right. There's always corruption.
And those people are idiots.
It's actually not true. I mean, if you look, the majority of cops that have done things that they shouldn't have done have been brought to trial and they've been convicted for, I mean, yes, go back a few years and that was a different thing, but the amazing thing about the American...
I wonder what he means by a few years.
system is it has a way of rectifying itself.
I wonder if recent events may have changed that.
So, we have to take every single thing on its merit, understand that the people are broken, that people make mistakes, and analyze it under that vision, with that kind of lens.
I have no iron.
We're seeing it.
Why do I have no
right
iron?
Now, it just takes one good guy or a few good guys to stand up and say, hey, listen, this is not right.
Or girls. God damn.
Now,
people don't realize that women can be shitty cops too, all right?
In Burkina Faso, or trying to do this in China, there's not a better system. It's not a perfect system, but there's not a better system on this planet than what we have here. Right? So we have to understand the bigger picture when it comes to sin, brokenness, and corruption, I think.
Right, all very good points.
Fuck your sin.
A quick break, we'll be back.
That was good.
All right, I know we've got about a minute here. I have to ask you, while you're here, what can we do about property taxes in Texas?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Please?
Thank you.
Border security and property taxes, without question.
Have an income tax.
People are concerned about losing sleep over.
I mean, seriously.
No, look, we're taxing people out of their homes, and it's wrong, and we've got to stop it.
Institute an income tax, then.
Look, I'm the guy that led the charge to ban a state income tax in Texas. I would love to ban property taxes as well, or at least substantially lower them. It's going to be the #1 issue next session when we convene.
How the fuck is your state gonna get revenue? Okay, I need to turn down the gain on my mic because I see I'm clipping. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, now hopefully I can start yelling without it being too much of an issue. How the fuck do you intend to have any revenue then? The reason your fucking property taxes are so goddamn high are because you don't have any fucking income tax. So then how is your state gonna have any revenue? I guess, the solution is you just slash any and all spending, and then problem solved. That'll balance everything out. Boop, boop, boo. Okay, back.
No doubt
Well,
about
good.
it.
Well, I hope for
All
some
options are on the
progress.
table.
Good. I hope for some progress on that. All right, Jeff, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so jeffleach.com is my website, Leach for Texas on Twitter. I don't have as many Twitter.
No.
Stream and
You don't get
subscribe to
shout out
Blaze
here.
Media content.
No shout outs for you.
/podcasts.
Boop. That's good there. Let's go back over here. I've got those two bands here. All right, that's the end of that podcast. Going over here. Nope. Go back to my subscriptions, please. I would like to listen to Ben Shapiro's.
Twitter accepts Elon Musk's offer to buy, and we examine all the panic and all the possibilities. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Ben Shapiro Show is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
Now-
We talk about them every single show.
I want to put this out here now, and I'm very upset by this, so I apologize. I'm probably... Excuse me. I'm probably going to agree with Ben Shapiro on most of this. I'm sure a lot of the conservative criticism about leftists and left-leaning people getting all up in arms over Elon Musk buying Twitter, they are all idiots, and I hate every last one of them. So, with that in mind, I'm probably not going to be too critical of Ben this episode.
Why haven't you gotten a VPN yet? Get ExpressVPN right now at expressvpn.com/Ben. We'll get to all the news in just one moment. First, your reminder, a lot of people seeking your information online. You got big tech, which controls like 90% of internet searches and runs your email service, gets to track everything you do on your smartphone. They're just grabbing that data, aggregating that data, using all of your search data in order to make money off of you. Why would you hand them that ability? Instead, use ExpressVPN. Put a layer of protection between your online activity and those big tech giants. Think about how much of your life's on the internet and all that stuff is being tracked. Instead, use ExpressVPN. The software hides your IP address, something big tech can use to personally identify you. So ExpressVPN makes your activity harder to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your internet data to keep you safe from hackers and eavesdroppers on your network. And ExpressVPN does all of that without slowing your connection, which is why it is rated the #1 VPN service by both Mashable and TechRadar. But I like most about ExpressVPN, it's really easy to use. Download the app on your phone or computer, tap one button, you are now protected. So, stop handing over your personal data to the big tech monopoly that mines your activity and sells your info. Protect yourself with the VPN I trust. Keep me safe online. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. Again, that's
Why don't you
Yes,
have-
that's vpn.com/Ben. Get those 3 extra months for free. Go to expressvpn.com/Ben right now to learn more. Well, in one of the most dramatic business moves in modern American history, Elon Musk has now bought Twitter. So there's a lot of talk last week that Elon Musk had offered $56.40 or $54.20 a share for Twitter stock, and that Twitter had figured out how to avoid this. That they had put a bunch of poison pills in the deal, that they had attempted to avoid Musk making some sort of hostile takeover bid, and now it appears that Twitter is going to sell itself to Elon Musk, and the company will be taken.
Yeah, it is kind of
private.
interesting
It's
that
no
they
longer
like
subject
spun
to
up this
governmental
poison pill,
oversight in the same
and
way as
then
any
we're just
publicly
like,
traded
second thought, never
Wall
mind.
Street Journal.
I feel like there's
Twitter
got to be
accepted
some
Musk's
kind of story
bid to
going
take
on
over
behind the
company
scenes
and go
there.
private in a deal that would give the world's richest person control over the social media network where he is among its most influential users. The $44 billion deal marks the close of a dramatic courtship and a change of heart at Twitter, where many executives and board members initially opposed Musk's takeover approach. The deal has polarized Twitter employees, users, and regulators over the power tech giants wield in determining the parameters of discourse on the internet and how those companies enforce their rules. The two sides worked through the night to hash out a deal in which Musk plans to take Twitter private in a deal that values the company at $54.20 a share. The takeover would mark one of the biggest acquisitions of a tech company and will most likely affect the direction of social
How many do
media.
I have here? 1,
Musk
2,
will
3,
bring
4,
commitment to a
5,
more
6,
hands-off
7, 8,
approach on
9,
speech
10,
moderation
11,
to a
12,
company that has struggled
13,
to reconcile
14, 15,
freewheeling
16, 17,
conversations with
18,
content
19,
that
20,
appeals to
21, 22,
advertisers.
23,
So this was
24.
always the lie, by the way,
So
that Twitter
2,
used
4,
when it would
6,
stranglehold
8,
content.
10,
The idea
12.
was
So
that
this
if
is
you
where I want the
allow
break.
people to speak freely, advertisers won't want to advertise anymore. Or alternatively, if you
Fuck,
allow
can I
people to
even
speak
do that
freely,
on?
then
Oh,
advertisers can
fuck
pick
me! I
and choose
can't
where
do
they
on
wish to
these because
advertise,
they're too
and maybe
fucking
everybody
small.
will stop harassing advertisers about where they choose to advertise. It's the simple fact is
Now
that
they're still
Twitter,
fucking
as it was
connected there.
operated, was a leftist organ, and you can see that by the freakout that Musk's takeover is now engendering in the left. It is incredible to watch the left lose its absolute mind, because here's the thing: Musk has not announced that he's going to be making any massive changes to Twitter.
2,
The
3,
user experience
4,
is going to be very similar.
5,
All he has said thus far is that he is going to be
6,
in favor of more free speech on the platform. He tweeted, quote, "Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. Twitter is the digital town square, where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, and authenticating all humans."
Making the
Twitter
algorithms
has
open
tremendous
source seems like a really bad business move, because like that seems to be the main bread and butter for these tech companies. But then again, he's not in this for the money, as he's said multiple times. So
I look forward
maybe
to
it
working
is
with
exactly
the
what he wants to
community
do.
of users to unlock it. Now that sounds pretty above board, right? He's saying that he wants to make the algorithms open source so you can actually see how the algorithms work. He's saying that he wants more free speech on the platform. That's it. More transparency and more free speech, and the left is freaking out, which shows you two things. One, the left really hates transparency and they really hate free speech, especially on these social media platforms. And this has really been true since 2016.
No one's upset with Musk for saying that he's going to take the algorithm and the source code open source. Like, no one gives two shits about that.
I have been making this point for years on end, that up until 2016, social media was seen as an unmitigated blessing for the left. The left loved social media. After all, Barack Obama had effectively manipulated Facebook in 2012 in ingenious ways to achieve his own re-election. Then, Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016, and social media became the enemies of the left. Social media had to be brought to heel. Social media had been taken over by Russian spam bots and evil right-wingers, and therefore, we needed governmental oversight. We saw people like Kara Swisher constantly complaining at the New York Times that there just wasn't enough oversight. There just wasn't enough censorship at places like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. You saw folks over at CNBC and MSNBC complaining routinely about how terrible it was that social media had allowed too many people to speak freely. You saw Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, openly say to Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook that unless you crack down on content, we will find a way to punish you. The left has hated free speech on these platforms for years, specifically because that free speech allowed alternative viewpoints to get out there. And they successfully cudgeled places like
I mean,
Twitter
that's
and
one
Facebook
way to
into
put,
submitting, which is
or
why
one
in
way to phrase,
the
QAnon
1 month
conspiracy
before the 2020
theories.
election, you saw the Hunter Biden story completely shut down on social media in coordinated fashion. It's why you saw all of these social media outlets begin to coordinate in who they would ban. And they would wait until one day and then just Alex Jones was gone. Now, I think Alex Jones is terrible. That doesn't mean he ought to be banned from social media. I think Milo Yiannopoulos is awful. I don't think he ought to be banned from social media. All of these outlets would simply, all at once, decide that they wanted these people gone, and then they would, in collusive fashion, just ban them. And that was the end of them. You saw them all do this to Donald Trump in the aftermath of January 6th, for the most prominent example. And this is something that the left loved. And then they lied about it. The left would say, you know, we're not anti-free speech, we're not anti-transparency, we just don't want any free speech or transparency. Well, all Elon Musk has said in taking over Twitter is that he wants more free speech and more transparency. And he tweeted out, I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means. People on the left lost their ever-loving minds. They've lost their minds. Why? Because they always knew. Their assumption always was Twitter was on their side. Twitter was their outlet. Twitter was their friend. The same thing with Facebook. The same thing with YouTube. And so the minute that somebody threatened that monopoly, they freak out. The minute somebody says, listen, I'd like more openness and more transparency, they lose their mind. Which shows you, again, they were lying the whole time. They kept saying to all of us on the right, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. Twitter is the town square. You know, you're complaining about
not.
the way that they are manipulating information or...
No, Twitter is not the town square. Anyone who says that is a fucking idiot, and I hate every last damn one of them.
Strangling off information or bottlenecking things or shadow banning people. You keep saying this sort of stuff, but it's all in your head. It's not real. Okay, well, if it's not real, then why are you freaking out now that Elon Musk has threatened to open up the process a little bit? Well, Elon Musk is going to run the business differently over at Twitter. Maybe you need to upgrade how you run your business, and this is where Podium comes in. If you own a business, you know there aren't enough hours in a day to waste time playing phone tag. The list of customers you need to reach doesn't get any shorter, especially when business is good. Plus, let's be real about this. If you're a consumer and some business calls you up on the line, you really pick up? Probably not. However, when you use text, things get better. This is what Podium does. Podium isn't just a better way to communicate, it's a better way to do everything. They gather reviews, collect payments, they even market to your customers. Podium makes it all as easy as pressing send. You won't just free up more time, you'll grow your business and get more done. With Podium, you'll close deals with customers before the competition even has a chance to call them back. Join more than 100,000 businesses that already use Podium to streamline their customer interactions. Get started for free at podium.com/Shapiro or sign up for a paid Podium account and a free credit card reader. Restrictions do apply. That's podium.com/Shapiro. Everybody of my generation is text-based. There's no reason why your business should still be analog. Instead, head on over to podium.com/Shapiro. That is podium.com/Shapiro to get started for free or sign up for that paid Podium account and get a free credit card reader. Restrictions apply. So all of this has raised the question as to what exactly Elon Musk is going to do once he takes over. By the way, Twitter shares did rise almost 6% on Monday to close at $51.70 each. The stock, according to the Wall Street Journal, has been an anemic performer in an era of huge returns for technology companies. Its shares jumped on their first day of trading in 2013 to close at $44.90, within a buck of where they were more than 8 years later when Mr. Musk made his approach. Okay, so what exactly is Elon Musk committing to do? Well, as I've said, he hasn't actually committed to do much at all at this point other than more free speech and more transparency. There's some speculation as to what he is going to do. According to the Wall Street Journal, Musk wants to make substantial changes to Twitter. He reiterated his push to soften Twitter's stance on content moderation. He also promised new features like making algorithms open source. He indicated through regulatory filings, tweets, and interviews at a TED conference how he thinks the company ought to run and what he would do if he were to successfully acquire the social media site. Here's a list of what he said. He said he would soften his stance on content moderation. He is the self-described free speech absolutist. He said that instead of just taking down tweets or permanently banning users, timeouts are better. He says the platform should follow the laws of the countries.
Okay, I can probably agree with that.
He would create an edit feature for tweets, which presumably would allow you to see the original version of the tweet and then also the edited tweet. He wants...
That'll be the thing, like what exactly is an edit button going to mean? Because I'm assuming that a big part of why they wouldn't add an edit button are because of like the retweet features, where you can take someone's tweet and pretty directly respond to it with a retweet, and that if you can then edit your the tweet, then you can just change the meaning or like change what it is that people are responding to pretty easily. Which, yeah, maybe that's not really much of a deal or much of a big deal at all. But I would assume, just spitballing, I would guess that that's the reason why Twitter has been hesitant to add an edit button.
To take the company private, because he says that there is no way to make the changes he wants without taking it private. He wants to give users who pay for Twitter Blue authentication checkmarks. So maybe the idea here is that in order to monetize the service, to get your account authenticated, you pay for that pleasure. He wants to rely less on advertising. He says Twitter should shift toward a business model that relies more on subscription, which again makes some sense. He wants to stop spam and scam bots and allow for longer tweets as well. So maybe move toward a more Substacky type model so you can actually subscribe and then you can put out longer tweet threads. Okay, all of that is fine. Here is what Elon Musk actually should do. Okay, there are 4 things in particular that Elon Musk really needs to do. Thing number 1, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So you keep hearing from the left after January 6th, we need a Truth and Reconciliation, like South Africa, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to see who was a supporter of Donald Trump. Okay, what we need in order to restore trust in Twitter is we need to see all the old algorithmic changes and how exactly they impacted user experience. So we need to see who was shadow banned. We need to see which keywords allowed for people to be banned. We need to see the standards that were applied. We need the books open, and we need to see the history of what exactly happened with Twitter. How was the decision made to get rid of the Hunter Biden story? How was the decision made to get rid of the Babylon Bee? How was the decision made to shadow ban particular accounts or quash the reach of particular accounts?
So the shadow ban and quashing, I'm pretty sure, is, again, like I've already said, not substantiated. The Hunter Biden one seems, from like what they've said, it was a decision on hacked materials, which I guess I haven't looked into that much. And so like maybe that was like some ad hoc justification that they kind of came up like on the spot about. But from what I just like going off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure they also squashed a bunch of like WikiLeaks related stuff, and like which I guess that also just like fuels into the conservative narrative, because a bunch of the WikiLeaks stuff was the Hillary Clinton emails. So that'll probably just further back up their claim that Twitter just had an anti-conservative bias.
That happened. So we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission over at Twitter. That is step number 1. Step number 2, we do need transparency in the algorithmic selection process. So Musk has already committed to this. He says that he wants an open source algorithm, meaning that we can all see how content is being elevated or how content is being suppressed. That is a very good thing, and that promise needs to be filled, because how are you going to trust the process if you can't actually see the process at work? If Musk does that, that'll be a major change, because that does establish credibility. That does mean, you don't like how it's being run, well, at least you can see how it's being run. Right now, the lack of transparency in Twitter is what has led to the massive distrust, because your tweet goes down or you're suspended and you have no idea. There's no feedback mechanism. You have no idea what you did wrong. You have to wait for like a week for some Twitter low-level employee doing scut work to get back to you. Making the algorithmic process more open and transparent at least allows us to know why these things are happening, whether it's a glitch or whether it's a problem or whether it's an actual concerted attempt to shut down particular points of view. There need to be clear rules of the road. So Twitter has had very, very vague rules of the road. This is also true with Facebook and YouTube. Basically, these rules of the road have allowed for bans on anything that Twitter doesn't like. And so you've seen this very inconsistent punishing of things like quote-unquote dead naming, right? This is why the Babylon Bee got banned, because the Babylon Bee made the tremendous mistake of saying that a man is not a woman and a woman is not a man. So the Babylon Bee had its account suspended.
I mean, that is harassment. Like, doing that consistently and intentionally is a form of harassment, which is, I'm going to argue that like a social media company should probably have an anti-harassment policy. Again, Musk can definitely get rid of that harassment policy, but if a social media company is going to have an anti-harassment term or an anti-harassment clause in their terms of service, then like intentionally dead name or misgendering someone falls under that.
Despite the fact that it is a satire site. So we need clear rules of the road. And what would that mean? That mean no violent threats, no intimidation, no pornography. There's some pretty clear rules of the road. And
No
then
pornography.
I think that Musk is likely to re-implement something like that. And then finally, and this is the most important thing, Musk needs to come in and he needs to fire everyone. I mean everyone. And Twitter has hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. There have been studies done of the donations, the political donations of the people working at Twitter.
Yep.
98.7% of all donations from the people working at Twitter went to Democrats in the last election cycle.
That is true for fucking every tech company. Any company that predominantly hires college graduates is going to predominantly give donations to Democratic candidates. Like, you cannot get away from that. Unless, like, you are an explicitly political organization. Then you can get around that.
98.7%. So it doesn't matter what rules Elon Musk sets top down if the so-called Twitter deep state is still implementing its favored policies. Because this is the thing. And Donald Trump found this out when he was president. You can name the
Twitter
policy top
deep
down,
state.
but if everybody at the State Department hates your guts, they're just going to undermine your policy. You can name the policy top down, but if everybody at the FBI decides to spend the next 4 years ginning up nonsense about Russian conspiracy theories,
Oh,
you can't get
okay.
what you done. When Musk takes over the company, he should do
Wow,
what every boss at
Ben
every
is
company
going
does.
full
He should
conspiracy
review the
theory
employee
now.
list and figure out who is good and who is bad. Not purely on the basis of politics, but on the basis of performance. So there are a lot of reasons why Elon Musk needs to fire like all of his employees at Twitter. We'll get into that in 1 second. First,
Wow, okay. So, all right, how is he gonna... So I think you might be able to make a pretty good just business-related argument here, in that, like, Twitter hasn't been doing well, like, just pure business-wise. And so there could be some grounds for, like, doing some massive turnovers, like forcing everyone to, like, reapply effectively. So there might be a bit of an argument there. But... damn, it sure fucking does sound like he's saying we got to fire everyone because a whole bunch of them are liberals. When you say we got to fire everyone and 89% of the employees are liberal, it certainly sounds like you're saying we should fire everyone for their political beliefs. Which, as Ben has already said in his other comments regarding like Disney in Florida, he is absolutely okay with that. So I guess there's no, at least internal contradiction with his fucked up worldview.
rates are rising on your mortgage. They really, really are. And you are at risk of missing out on significant savings. You need to consider your options like right now because mortgage rates are going in the wrong direction. So if you've been considering a refi, you need to do it right now. Don't wait for like another minute. Don't wait for another day. That would be a dumb move. Instead, visit my friends over at AmericanFinancing.net.
No,
Inflation is
fuck your ads.
100. That's 86. Demonstrating that's ad percent. Please know this is certainly not entertainment for me. Wow. Okay, well, you know what else might be entertaining? You not working here anymore. Addison Howenstein, him, software engineer at Twitter. He tweeted, point of view, you asked me why Elon Musk buying 9.2% of Twitter and getting a board seat is bad, and I'm explaining why this was clearly not his end goal, and things will certainly get worse and potentially be dangerous for democracy and global affairs. Well, I hope that you enjoy working somewhere else. Geraint Davies, real-time media infrastructure at Twitter, currently working on Twitter Spaces audio engineering. This person tweeted out, anyone in need of a software engineer with 40 years of experience? Asking for a friend. Well, I mean, I hope that your resume is ready, Geraint. Jay Holler, him, his, engineering manager at Twitter, hashtag, until we all belong, hashtag Black Lives Matter. He tweeted, okay, I'm radicalized now. Says, it's broken me. Said the problem with Elon Musk is that he has demonstrated a pattern of harmful behavior consistently that disproportionately impacts marginalized people. So maybe let's not give him any more power than he already stole. Again, the nice thing about Elon Musk being your boss is that he doesn't have to make you his employee. Haraldur Thorluson, something director at Twitter from San Francisco, California. Elon Musk just temporarily at least made me a lot of money, and I still dislike him. Well, I hope that money is enough to pad you through retirement. Krem Cassie, astrophysicist, lady, feminist, demisexual, genderqueer, trans woman. A lot of words to say biological man. Krem Cassie says, I'm honestly kind of terrified right now. Oh. A prominent transphobe buying a large stake in Twitter is not at all funny. This was from April 4th. I mean, it's a little funny. And he's not a transphobe, Elon Musk. He just says that men and women exist. So, here's the thing. Elon Musk, note to you. When you take over Twitter, everybody over there who is deeply opposed to the kinds of changes that you are making, they're free to use Twitter. They should not be running Twitter. You can fire them. And you should. You do not leave people inside your company who are going to try to thwart everything that you do on behalf of their own political priors. Again, the confusion reigning in Twitter right now is pretty astonishing. So, there was a Twitter all-hands meeting last night, according to Alex Heath, who is a senior reporter at The Verge. He says, it seems clear who will be CEO after the deal closes hasn't been decided. The board chair did confirm the board would cease to exist once the deal closes in roughly 6 months. The current CEO, Parag Agrawal, said no plans for layoffs, quote unquote, at this time. Apparently, Parag Agrawal said he will stay as CEO until the close. He didn't address what happens after. He said the plan is to bring Elon Musk in for a Q&A. As far as...
Yeah, probably because the actual close is, again, as I said earlier, and as everyone should be taking these comments with a huge grain of salt, that any actual changes are going to be months, if not like a year plus down the road.
Possibility of President Trump coming back on Twitter. Parag Agrawal says once the deal closes, we don't know which direction the platform will go. It's a question we should address with Elon Musk. He said he wants Twitter to be a powerful force in the world just like all of us. He said there's indeed uncertainty about what will happen after the deal closes. We'll hear directly from Elon, and I will continue to spend time with him. And then he said we don't have all the answers. This is a period of uncertainty. Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Parag Agrawal should go the way of the dodo bird. And Parag Agrawal recently suggested that his role was not to be bound by the First Amendment. So anytime he wants to leave, the door can don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
It's a private company. They are under no obligation to support the First Amendment at all.
So all these people are freaking out. And again, Elon Musk's core mission here is pretty simple. Open up Twitter, make it more transparent. And the left is freaking out. And the people inside his company are the first who needs to go. Those are the people who need to go first. And if I were taking over a company, and I knew that the company was hostile to me, that the huge number of the people inside the company hated my guts, that's fine. They can all go work elsewhere. There are plenty of jobs in America right now, thanks to that booming Biden economy. So go enjoy yourselves out there. Yeah. Meanwhile, the White House is freaking out. So Jen Psaki suggested that Joe Biden was concerned about Section 230. Suddenly, he's very concerned about social media. Weird how the minute that Elon Musk takes over Twitter, suddenly their concerns grow. Almost as though government has acted.
No, they've been concerned about, social media policy for a while now, really all through the pandemic and in the Trump years, but just not for the same reason that conservatives are concerned about it.
As a behind-the-scenes sponsor of social media on behalf of left-wing causes, bullying and cudgeling social media into doing what they want social media to do. And Elon Musk might not do what they want Elon Musk to do, and now they are very mad.
What I can tell you as a general matter, no matter who owns or runs Twitter, the president has long been concerned about the power of large social media platforms.
Yeah, I think I'd
the
just
power they
want
have
this to
over
be
our everyday
all...
lives, has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause.
Yeah, so they're going to ratchet up the pressure on Elon Musk. The good news for Elon Musk is that he doesn't care. Dude doesn't care. Even though the government has been attempting to crack down on him, the use of the Securities and Exchange Commission to go after Elon Musk has been a frequent feature of the relationship between this administration and Musk's companies.
Meanwhile, because he keeps fucking violating
are in charge
the
of
law.
the asylum over there. So Ari Melber over at MSNBC, he dropped what I thought was the funniest comment. So yesterday, after it became clear that Musk was going to take over Twitter, he said, "This is really scary stuff. You might secretly, ban one party's candidate or something." Does anyone have a mirror for Ari Melber? Mirror anyone. We need a mirror. Write up stat. Mirror stat on aisle 9.
You own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up.
To play somewhat of devil's advocate here, no candidate was ever banned from social media. Trump did, but he wasn't a candidate anymore. He was a one-term president. I guess he was still active president. But then, so, is referring to him as a one-term president when he's in the middle of his first term? Yeah, probably still accurate, but anywho, he wasn't a candidate anymore, so I guess coming somewhat to his defense, he's somewhat right in that, the actual candidate has never been banned. But if a candidate did get banned, it would be totally fine because it's a private fucking company. They can do what they want.
Up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech,
I need a bullet.
philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
Well, that'd be so scary. I mean, if they turn down the reach of particular politicians just before an election, that wouldn't. I mean, now that Elon Musk took over, that might. Wait, that's exactly what happened right before the 2020 election. Kayleigh McEnany got knocked off of Twitter. The Trump team got knocked off of Twitter. The Hunter Biden story got completely knocked off of Twitter. So, yeah, Ari, that's sort of the problem that Elon Musk is trying to solve. So the left continue to lose their mind, and the simple fact of the matter is, one of the reasons is they do not understand tech properly. Well, one of the things that they don't like is crypto. Elon Musk is big into crypto, and let's be real about this. Crypto, something I'm invested in. I like crypto. You can open an Alto Crypto IRA account. There are multiple ways to fund it. Oh, no. It's a town square. It's all in your mind, guys. It's just.
It's not a town square.
And then the minute Elon Musk comes in, he's like, you know, I'm going to open up the books, and I'm going to open up the algorithm, and I'm going to let people talk. Like, no, we can't do that. No. Okay, right. Because we know this was a left-leaning outlet, staffed by leftists who hate people on the right. We know that. And the fact that you are protesting demonstrates this fact very, very clearly. It's fun to watch some of Elon Musk's and these kind of jealous billionaires going after one another. So Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, Democracy. Jeff Bezos, he tweeted, interesting question. Did the Chinese government just gain a bit of leverage over the town square? The idea being, of course, that because Tesla has parts that are made in China, then it must be that Elon Musk is going to allow Twitter to be run by the Chinese. Okay.
No. That's a pretty dumb thing to say.
First of all, according to Beckett Adams over at the Washington Examiner, the Washington Post published Agitprop, produced by China Daily, the official propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party, as disguised as legit news. Between 2016 and 2020, the CCP paid the Washington Post $4.5 million. Bezos purchased the Washington Post in 2013. Hey, honestly, Bezos complains a little too much here. It's just, well done, Jeff Bezos. Meanwhile, Donnie Deutsch over on MSNBC says, this is just not great, guys. It's just not great. What are we going to do? It's just not great. Man, the leftist hears you. This Tumblr right here. Let me tell you. When you subscribe, become an annual subscriber, this thing, it's been overflowing all morning. I mean, we need Cardi B back here with a bucket and a mop. That is what we need. It's flowing everywhere. The tears thing. Yeah, rich and salty. Here's Donnie Deutsch on MSNBC in a state of panic.
To me, when the richest guy in the world takes over the most important social media platform,
not
a winning formula.
Fucking hell, Twitter is not the most. I mean, God damn it. I hate it. Okay, so I am willing to grant some deep breath, chill out. I am willing to grant some wiggle room here in that Twitter is a very important social media platform. However, it is only because it is the platform that journalists and politicians care the most about. And because journalists and most politicians care a lot about Twitter, that gives it, I think, a little bit of undue importance compared to other social media accounts. Even though I think there was a chart, I'm going to switch over, well, this one, yeah. Because that way, if I pull up, there was a picture someone posted in a Discord chat I'm in. I haven't been able to verify this yet. But, like, Twitter, in terms of, like, number of daily users, has fewer daily users than fucking Pinterest. Like, you're not that big of a social media company if you have fewer fucking daily users than Pinterest. It's only because that I think this is 436,000 users. It's only because it's like a huge chunk of those users are the journalists and the politicians that it seems to them to have like undue influence over the platform and everything. I need to make myself smaller for this. Except, no, I still want to keep myself nice and big. Boom. There we go. It's like, it does not have that much actual reach. Point I'm trying to get at. All right.
It reminds me of old Bond movies where, you know, Dr. Evil and guys like that, or Goldfinger, we're going to take over the media. My tummy meter says there's something just not great about this.
My tummy meter.
His tummy meter says there's something not great about this. Wow. Wow. If Donnie Deutsch opposed it, but it's not just Donnie Deutsch. I think the funniest group to oppose this is really funny. The funniest group to oppose this is the ACLU. So the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, is now raising hate speech concerns over Elon Musk.
Why aren't you making stuff?
It's so good.
Oh, because like fuel.
So the ACLU is very, very concerned. So is the NAACP.
Why
so
are
the
you
ACLU, which is designed, as I said, to preserve civil liberties. They've offered a statement by Anthony Romero, quote, while Elon Musk is an ACLU card-carrying member and one of our most significant supporters, there's a lot of danger having so much power in the hands of any one individual. Weird, because I don't see you guys complaining about Mark Zuckerberg all that often. In today's world, a small handful of private tech companies, including...
What? Everyone fucking complains about Mark Zuckerberg. Like, every fucking leftist under the sun was complaining about how, like, Facebook was, like, the biggest spreader of misinformation. Everyone complains about fucking Mark Zuckerberg. What? Come on, Ben, you're better than this.
Twitter play a profound and unique role in enabling our right to express ourselves online. Social media is a critical tool used to share ideas, express opinions, and consume information that has real-life impacts in discourse in the offline world. We should be worried about any powerful central actor, whether it's a government or a wealthy individual, even if it's an ACLU member, having so much control over the boundaries of our political speech. No, much better. You should have Parag Agrawal or Jack Dorsey or some other left-winger in control of this mechanism of distribution of information than Elon Musk. Slow clap for the ACLU. Amazing. The reason that they're worried, of course, is because he is going to broaden out speech protections, and the ACLU long ago stopped worrying about civil liberties and started worrying about equity. They made it very clear. I mean, they put out a press release a few years ago where they basically said, we have to balance the needs of civil liberties with equity concerns, which means you're no longer the American Civil Liberties Union. You also have Human Rights Watch very concerned. Any human rights group who's putting out a statement about Elon Musk taking over Twitter because, oh my God, now people might be able to say things we don't like. It just demonstrates they never cared about human rights. You know, like the rights of humans, like the right to free speech. They don't care about any of that stuff. It makes no difference to them.
It's a government right.
Meanwhile,
not a private company right.
You remember after George W. Bush won in 2000, there was all this talk by leftists about how they're going to move to Canada. So the new Move to Canada movement is, I'm leaving Twitter. I'm taking my tweets and I'm leaving. Okay, well,
but yeah,
as I have been told many times,
people should fucking do that. Like, if you don't like the way that Elon Musk is going to run the company, then fucking leave the company. Start your own. Start your own Parler or Getter or whatever the fuck it is you want to tweet.
Go build your own. Go build your own Twitter. It's fine. You know, it's a private company. Yes. Go build your own Twitter. It's fun to watch the left flip.
Holy shit.
On most of the things they've been saying.
Ben gets it. So, nice job, Ben. I knew you could do it.
Social media. More transparency, guys. Radical transparency. We just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And then Musk is like, I'm going to give you transparency. Like, no, not like that. No, it can't be Elon Musk. It's got to be Elizabeth Warren doing it. And then it was Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post. Well, it's probably fine. It's probably okay. And it's like, no, Elon Musk is endangering democracy. And then it was, you know what? If you don't like it, you can always go build your own Twitter. Well, you want to regulate them? Go build your own Twitter.
Yes.
It's a private company. They can do what they want. And then
100%.
I will buy that private company. Like, no, can't be like, no, I'm not gonna.
Wait,
no,
what's
that's
dying?
fascism.
Oh fuck! Oh wait, yeah, shit. I'm working on that. God damn it! Fuck!
The idea was that Ron DeSantis.
Ah, god damn. Oh, I didn't even get any fucking. God damn it! What?
Rid of a special tax dispensation for Disney in the state of Florida, and now it is. We need the government to
Please
step in
stop,
and stop Elon
bugs.
Musk from taking over Twitter and broadening free speech rights.
Please stop killing all my
Slow clap
shit.
for all you hypocritical jackasses.
Stupid fucking
Really slow
bugs.
clap for you. But don't worry. I mean, the list goes on and on of the people on the left who lost their ever-loving minds. So Elizabeth Warren, of course, she tweets, "This deal is dangerous for our democracy. Billionaires like Elon Musk play by a different set of rules than everyone else, accumulating power for their own gain. We need a wealth tax and strong rules to hold big tech accountable." So again, she had no problem whatsoever with Disney injecting itself into politics in Florida. Disney is one of the wealthiest and most powerful companies on planet Earth. But Elon Musk is bad. He plays by a different set of rules than everyone else. No, he plays by the same set of rules, he just wins. That would be the difference right there. And I love that she thinks that a wealth tax would solve all of this. They tried a wealth tax in Europe, they had to revoke the wealth tax because it turns out everybody who had the money just went away. The deal is dangerous. Elizabeth Warren talking about democracy is always a laugh. Because this lady hates democracy more than pretty much anybody else in the Senate. All she wants is regulatory agencies, like her cherished Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, to simply run how the economy works without any sort of democratic input. There's Elizabeth Warren, genius. Oh, but the list goes on. There are so many of them. Charles Blow, the aptly named Charles Blow because he's Colin Blow. He writes for the New York Times.
Fuck!
This one is pretty funny. So he tweets out, "Looks like I'm about to say goodbye to Twitter as well. I've been pulling back a bit from social media anyway. This will be just
I don't want to hear it.
to go all the way on this app." By all the way, as it turns out, he doesn't mean all the way. He's still going to use Twitter, as it turns out. He says, "Well, I'm out. I will now use Twitter like I use Facebook, only for promo purposes, to post my columns, TV and speech appearances, and book info. No content specifically for it or created on it." Because after all, every time you post, Elon Musk makes money. We wouldn't want to make more money.
Yeah.
So instead, Charles Blow is only going to post his column from the New York Times in order to maximize his own engagement and also make more money for Twitter. By the way,
care, given the fact that like he will like tweet out at Elizabeth Warren if like she goes after him. Like Musk has a pretty good reputation of like sticking his fan base on people. I guess I probably shouldn't say. I probably can't back that up with enough evidence to declare that definitively. But the fact that he has gone after Elizabeth Warren before, which is fine. He went after the diver who like criticized Musk because Musk was like, "I can build a little tiny submarine," and the diver was like, "Fuck off, you idiot! That ain't gonna help." Musk definitely cares when people go after him.
Because he's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Tim Weiss tweeted,
But whether or not like he sticks his fan base, I probably shouldn't say
whatever
that.
they want in the name of free speech. Cool. There are other options. Okay, well, we will catch you later. Also, Tim Weiss ain't dealing with Nazis. No way, no how. I mean, like, really, all these guys who are announcing on Twitter they're about to charge the beaches of Normandy by logging off Twitter. You are unconvincing. Meanwhile, Wajahat Ali, who's a garbage columnist for the New York Times, he tweeted, "The rich play by their own rules. I love how you notice this only when it's rich people you don't like. When it's rich people you do like, then you're rooting for Disney. You're rooting for Abigail Disney, the heiress. You're rooting for Jeff Bezos. Pramila Jayapal doing the same routine. Just a reminder that from 2014 to 2018, Elon Musk paid an effective tax rate of 3.27%. The average working family pays an average tax rate of 13%. It's time for a wealth tax in this country. Okay, stop on this one for a second. I just want to point out that she's lying. That's not true. From 2013 to 2018, Elon Musk paid an income tax rate of about 27%. The only way that he gets that number, 3.27%, is if you were going to tax his unrealized capital gains, which, as we have discussed before, that's stupid. That's like I own a stock and I don't sell the stock, and now you're going to tax me on the increase in the value of the stock. Are you going to give me a tax rebate when the stock goes down? But you have to lie. You have to lie in order to make it seem like Elon Musk has unfairly benefited here. Elon Musk, honest to goodness, the man may be the greatest living American. Robert Reich, when oligarchs talk about freedom, beware. It says Robert Reich, who wants the government to run everything. By the way, oligarchy is where the government is run by the richest people in the land. And meaning that government and industry are fused. What I'm seeing right now is the government is very opposed to Elon Musk. Robert Reich says, for Jeff Bezos, it means his freedom to set prices. I love this. So I just have to point out here that Robert Reich is not contending with Jeff Bezos owning it in the Washington Post. That was not a threat to freedom of speech. He's only worried about Jeff Bezos setting prices. By the way, the price is set by Amazon.
If memory serves, a lot of people were really critical of
So Robert Reich doesn't like
buying
Jeff
the
Bezos
Post.
has freedom to set prices, even if those prices are better for consumers. For Jamie Dimon, it means his freedom to consolidate the banking industry. For Elon Musk, it means his freedom to set the terms of
Why am
political
I
debate.
doing this?
Don't get it
I have a
confused.
blueprint.
Well, hold up. It seems like you're confused because Jeff Bezos, again, owns a major media outlet and you have no problem. It's only Elon Musk you have a problem with. It's just amazing, amazing stuff there from a mentally underdeveloped former Secretary of the Treasury. Anand Giridhardis, who writes sometimes for CNN, he says, what Elon Musk is doing is what plutocrats have been doing, using money to buy power and power to protect their money, taking control of media to rig the discourse and hedge against resentment, and branding themselves the solution to the very problem they are. So I have a question. How is him opening up debate on Twitter being the problem? How? And how exactly is him saying that he wants more dissent on the platform the big issue? Meanwhile, Ibram X. Kendi, grifter extraordinaire, he went on Twitter to quote Robert Reich, saying, when billionaires like Musk justify their motives by using freedom, beware. They want to use their vast fortunes to do whatever they please, unconstrained by laws or regulations, shareholders, or even consumers. Well, I mean, isn't that the nature of freedom? I thought that freedom was being unconstrained by stupid laws and stupid regulations. And as far as shareholders, Elon Musk is currently paying Twitter shareholders like way above market value. Sean King, or as he's known online, Talcum X, because he's probably not actually black. Sean King tweeted, at its root, Elon Musk wanting to purchase Twitter is not about left versus right. It's about white power. Well, Sean King should know something about that. The man was raised in apartheid by a white nationalist. He's upset that Twitter won't allow white nationalists to target and harass people. That's his definition of free speech. Is it, though? Has he said that from now on the N-word will be totally allowed? Like, also, we will see.
I mean, if he's like a free speech absolutist,
who actually is,
he totally might. Like, it wouldn't be that surprising if he kind of opens those floodgates.
Resistors to remain on Twitter for a very simple reason. Facebook is an aggressive propaganda machine for the far right and the beliefs and ethics of Donald Trump. We cannot concede Facebook and Twitter in this war. This is so delusional. It's so delusional. The idea that Facebook and Twitter are propaganda machines for the right, that Facebook is a propaganda machine for the right, if by that you mean that we write headlines on Facebook that people click on, that is true. Also, it happens to be true that the left still represents the majority of clicks on Facebook, and that Facebook will routinely change its algorithm, disproportionately damaging the right. It happens all the time. Yvette Nicole Brown tweeted, how many Russian oligarchs are propping up this Elon Musk Twitter bid right now, do you think? Man, it is amazing how much the left sounds like paranoid John Birchers circa 1954. It's amazing. Everything is the Ruskies now. The Ruskies are hiding under their bed, the Ruskies are in the telephone booth next door, and the Ruskies are backing Elon Musk. By the way, I would just like to note at this point that Elon Musk, his net worth is supposedly about $265 billion. The complete GDP of Russia every year is about $1.3 trillion. In other words, Elon Musk's total wealth is worth approximately 1/5 of the entire Russian economy. So I'm pretty sure he doesn't need Russian money, Yvette. Yvette says, it sure would fix everything for Putin, Tang, and the rest of the complicit super rich if this platform was run by them. After the takeover, I wouldn't DM anymore if I were you. Nailed it. Nailed it. Probably
so
Elon
fucking
Musk
stupid.
is only buying it so he can be used as cut out by the Russians. That is genius. Genius stuff. Rob Reiner, the director who hasn't made a good movie in quite a while, says now that Elon Musk is buying Twitter, the question for all of us is, will he allow a criminal to use this platform to lie and spread disinformation to try to overthrow the U.S. government, to return and continue his criminal activity?
No, my car.
How do we combat it? Well, I mean, you would just sound off on, I assume you're talking about Donald Trump, you would just sound off on the stuff that Donald Trump is saying, you know, like in regular life, like when somebody says something you disagree with, and then you disagree with them. Like that's a thing. So, it's pretty impressive to watch how the left is having an absolute freaking meltdown over this entire thing. Insane to watch. But again, indicative of the fact that the left always knew that Twitter was their favorite outlet, and now they are super mad that their favorite plaything might be taken away from them. So, yes, a toast to Elon Musk with all of the leftist tears that fit in this mug. And again, they're consistently overflowing the tumbler at this point. So in 1 second, we'll get to Hollywood's attacks on Elon Musk because they're about to begin. First, let me talk about the most comfortable underwear on the market. These are Tommy John underwear. And it's not just for men. Right up, Tommy John, 25% off. It's Tommy John's hour. It was released. Don't worry, it is now back in stock. That is correct. We'll sell out again about it. So, according to Variety, Elon Musk's Crash Course is the newest production from FX and the New York Times as part of their collaborative documentary series, The New York Times Presents. These projects provide in-depth looks at prominent people and events, ranging from Janet Jackson to Jewel to the 2020 Australian bushfire disasters. The most famous of these documentaries so far were popular documentaries about Britney Spears, framing Britney Spears, and controlling Britney Spears. By the way, we did do a critique of those documentaries. They are garbage. They are garbage. The entire documentary is predicated on the notion that Britney Spears is completely mentally healthy and then goes after everybody who had her in a conservatorship and all of that. The expose will focus mainly on the negative aspects of Tesla, according to Variety.
I already have one there.
They say that the documentary will explore the future-minded company and the development of self-driving cars. The publication shared, quote, featuring the reporting from Cade Metz and Neil Boudet of the New York Times, the film will dive into how Tesla's autopilot program has resulted in several deaths, and Musk and the company have yet to publicly acknowledge, and details Musk's efforts to kill government investigations into the incidents. Several former Tesla employees will be featured in the documentary, speaking out against Musk for the first time. Oh, wow, I can't imagine why they're doing this. What a mystery wrapped in an enigma. Our media, they are completely unbiased, except when they are unleashed.
I'm assuming they've probably been working on this for a while.
Who makes, by the way, a product that I thought was good. I've been told by Joe Biden and company that electric cars are the future. I've been told that getting off of carbon-based emissions is the most important thing that you can do as a human today. And yet, the number one electric car maker on planet Earth, Elon Musk and Tesla, they're the bad guys now. Why, it's almost as though your priorities have nothing to do with the environment. And
it's almost as if they're not fucking ideologues who fucking worship everything a good person does. I'm not even going to say a good person. That just because a person does like a good thing, they don't fucking fall on themselves and excuse all the other shitty behavior they might be in. It's almost as if they're not in a fucking cult.
Everything to do with your own political agenda. The Hollywood Reporter says the deep dive will also examine pressure Elon Musk has put on government officials to quash investigations. By the way, when it comes to deaths caused by so-called self-driving cars, typically what happens in those situations is human error. But put that aside, it's very obvious what Hollywood is attempting to do right here. Very clear what Hollywood is attempting to do. So they're now going to go after Elon Musk with all of their fury. By the way, Elon Musk is not a Republican. Elon Musk has donated to both sides. He donated to Hillary Clinton, I believe, in 2016. He spreads political
that's true.
out. This idea that he's like a hardcore right-winger is just not true.
Again, it's almost as if no one is saying he's a hardcore right-winger. I mean, okay, yes, I'm sure dumb fucks on Twitter are saying he's a hardcore right-winger. But, like, none of the criticisms that you are, like, rebutting right now are saying that he's some hardcore, like, MAGA supporter. They're saying he's done some shitty things and that his Tesla company isn't all it's cracked up to be. Just because, yes, it's pushing EVs doesn't mean it's this grand bastion of, like, freedom and technological innovation and can do no wrong. Jesus Christ, the fact that Ben thinks that this is some kind of gotcha is fucking pathetic.
Worth the $44 billion.
Okay, I need another drink. Enjoy listening to this.
So much
I'll be back.
Of what is happening right now is just about the bluff of the left being called and them being really, really mad about it. Them saying they love free speech, but don't, whatever you do, no more free speech. Them saying, well, go build your own Twitter, but don't buy Twitter. Don't do that. That would be super, super duper bad. That's really, really bad. And what is happening right here is that the pushback against corporate wokeism is taking place, and it's taking place on a couple of fronts. You have legislative attempts to curb it in places like Florida. You have market attempts to do so, places like the Daily Wire going into competition, and most importantly, people like Elon Musk actually buying giant companies and then attempting to open them up. And the left doesn't know what to do because this has been their most clever, concerted attempt of the last 20 years in the United States. After the era of big government ended under Bill Clinton, the left then apparently decided, you know what? We can't do this directly through government, so what we will do is we will use government threats in order to essentially consolidate corporate America as a left-wing outlet. This is their plan. They will live in the gray area between public and private. They understand the right doesn't like encroachment on private sector spaces. And so what they will do is they will use unofficial and sometimes official pressure by the government in order to get those private sector actors to do what they want. And then if the right complains, they'll say, hey, private actors. Okay, but now the pushback has begun. And that pushback is likely to continue, unabated. So Musk is part of a broader trend here. He is not the only one. What he's doing is super important. And honestly, what he's doing with Twitter may in fact actually shore up institutional credibility through further transparency. That's a really good thing. Like, if you are worried about social media tearing apart the social fabric, you ought to be happy about the fact that now we actually get to see under the hood. That we actually get to see who is controlling what you see and what you hear. You want to get rid of conspiracy theories, transparency is the best disinfectant. But this is part of a broader pushback that has been a very, very long time in coming. And that pushback is happening on a lot of fronts. It's happening, again, against everything from Walt Disney Company to, for example, the S&P 500. The S&P 500 actually rates companies based on ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Corporate Governance, which is the S&P 500's way of basically dinging companies that don't reflect the left. Now places like Utah are pushing back against that. All of this is good. All of it is necessary. So, hats off to Elon Musk, and we look forward to seeing what he does next. Alrighty, we'll be back later today with an additional hour of content. In the meantime, go check out one of our newest podcasts, Morning Wire. On today's episode, they discuss what France's presidential election means for Europe. That episode is available right now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, so make sure to tune in. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
Alright, well, that was fun.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the show. Help spread the word
I did
about
not
the Ben Shapiro
enjoy,
Show by
but
giving
I'm
us a
still
5-star review and
subscribed.
sharing the show
I guess
with a
I'll
friend.
spread
We're
it
available
with
on
this,
Apple
but hopefully, I don't know, I can provide at least a somewhat mediocre rebuttal. Okay, so the other podcast I was going to listen to tonight that I just don't have the energy for right now because it's already getting kind of late is Jordan Peterson's podcast. He just had the one and only Douglas Murray on there to talk about the war on the West. But that's like 2 fucking hours long, and I am definitely not going to be streaming for another 2 hours. So instead, we are going to listen to some nice, even-keeled NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Splunk. Splunk gives you the data platform you need to thrive in today's hybrid world. Bolster security, build resilience, and unlock innovation with Splunk. The data
Okay, what do I
platform
need?
for
What do
the
I need?
hybrid
What do I
world.
need?
More at splunk.com/why.
This is Tom McDermott in the Puget Sound region of Washington State. I just browned lamb shanks and root vegetables, seasoned with
Wait,
rosemary,
I
garlic,
already listened to
salt,
this
and pepper,
episode.
and moved it to the oven to braise for 3
I definitely
hours
started
on
listening
low.
to this. I don't know if I finished it or not. Alright, so instead of that, since I think I already listened, it's like an hour, I guess, yeah. We'll see if we can finish all. We'll do Hacks on Tap. No more conservative media. I should probably change my title so I'm not lying to all the good people. How do I probably want to open this up, scroll down to edit video, wait for that to load. We'll just X out the word conservative. Boom. Maybe? Your account is at greater risk of attack because you don't have... Oh, okay, I'll fix that. How do I go back to there, and there, and there, and live, and... Look at this.
Hey, pull up a chair. It's Hacks on Tap with David Axelrod, Robert Gibbs, and Mike Murphy.
Walt Disney Corporation, of course, claimed that Walt Disney Corporation claimed that America was founded on, quote, systemic racism and encouraged employees to complete a, quote, white privilege checklist. Under this law, that is a violation of your civil rights.
There you have it.
Okay, under the new law being passed.
Robert Gibbs, Governor DeSantis of Florida, has finally found a worthy opponent, Mickey Mouse, and he's playing it to the hilt.
I didn't have Civil Rights Crusader on my Ron DeSantis bingo card. Did you have that on yours? I was.
I don't know, but well, let's ask.
It's an interesting moniker.
Let's ask a guy who is now a DeSantis expert, having gone down there for his show, The Circus, to take a look at the DeSantis phenomenon. Our old buddy Mark McKinnon. Mac, good to see you.
First class private hackaroo reporting for duty, sirs. How are you?
We've promoted you to corporal. You're a corporal now.
Let's see how he does.
Oh, you want to wait on the promo? Oh, sorry.
We hand out the promotions at the end, not the beginning. And we should point out that our buddy Mike Murphy was to be here today. He's a little under the weather. And Gibbs, good to see you. McKinnon, cool. Talk about DeSantis, because I still believe Donald Trump's going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. But if he's not, this guy's making a pretty big play for it, and he's using Florida as a kind of staging area.
So this is one thing. My money right now as far as like confidence level, I'd put like $10 down on this, but I think DeSantis is going to be the nominee. I'm putting that out there right now, today, April 26th. 2 years out, DeSantis is going to be the nominee.
For
$10. Place your bets
no
now.
question, Axe. I mean, he's got a kind of a Republican laboratory of culture wars going on down there. And if Trump's the 800-pound gorilla, DeSantis is the 700-pound gorilla right behind him. And we spent the last week down there sort of investigating what's going on. And once you get down there, you clearly see why. I mean, this guy is, he's got a lot of the Trump sort of attributes, and more. And I sort of tell my Democratic friends, if you're worried about Trump, you should maybe really be worried about DeSantis. Because he is very calculating. He's got a shtick that comes across as very authentic, which is I don't back down from nothing.
Right.
And people love it. And he's tapped into these culture wars. He's the tip of the spear on all this stuff, on critical race theory, on banning textbooks, on
don't say gay.
Don't say gay. And who would have thought, not long ago, that a Republican governor would rise on the wave of attacking not just a corporation, but the most popular corporation in America, the Walt Disney Company, and come out on top, come out ahead. And so it's really interesting, but I think it's a real preview of the kind of campaigning we're going to see, not just in the midterms, but probably in 2024. This is the culture wars. And we saw it with Youngkin in Virginia. DeSantis is kind of refining that, but it's this whole parental rights shtick, which is really tapping into a post-COVID ethos that everybody's like, we kind of stopped paying attention to the schools and what's going on over there, and what are they doing, and what are they teaching, and what is this with boys swimming and girls events, and man, I just tell you, and we have people on our show who are parroting a lot of this stuff, and you listen to it and you can see they're, it doesn't sound too crazy.
I would say, to your point too, Mark, he's in a big state, by the way, an important state. And like it or not, he's doing all this stuff, right? To your point, the Tom Cottons of the world, the Hawleys of the world, the Cruzes of the world are going to talk about, here's what we should do. And Ron DeSantis is going to be able to say, I did that. I did that in the third largest state. And he's using this run up to his own reelection bid again, like it or not, a very shrewd way for positioning inside of what I think everyone presumes will be a Republican presidential primary.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I still, as I said, I think that, we're all under.
No, my car broke. Fuck, and I need to make a new one. Can I just make a new one right now? Do I have an engine?
What's interesting to me about DeSantis.
Please tell me, yes, I have an engine. Except I don't. I have fuel too. Fuck yeah!
My theory about replicas and remedies that people don't.
Boom.
When they judge
Hopping
the
on
president
it.
they have,
Let's
and they
go.
don't look for the replica. They look for
Vroom,
the
vroom.
remedy. One of the things that are most
I don't have any bullets in here.
worrisome to people about Biden, that he's old and that he's weak. Those are the raps that you hear.
Let's go.
About.
Come on, car.
Here
Vroom,
comes
vroom.
DeSantis, who's in his 40s. And muscular as all get
So yeah, for anyone
pushing people
who
around.
wasn't fully
It isn't
aware,
just
this is
that
definitely
he
not
has
a
this,
conservative
this
podcast.
bill
This is Hacks on Tap. It's a couple of who are the main guys who run this? Mark McKinnon and executive producer and co-host of the series. That's the guest, Axe and Gibbs. So they're two former Obama chief of staff and campaign runner people. They're two people who were involved in the Obama White House. I don't remember exactly at what level.
Grades about anything to do with sexuality. So, for example, if a kid says, "Why does?" I had this discussion with Sarah Longwell on my other podcast, The Axe Files, this week. And she's gay and she has a child, and she says, if someone says, "Why does Billy have two moms?" And not a mom and a dad, a teacher can't answer the question, even in the most benign way.
So I don't think that the law definitively says that you cannot talk about these things. That is a little bit of an exaggeration, at least as far as I can tell. But that the fact that it's not explicit in the law, but it is open to interpretation in the current iteration of the Parental Rights and Education Bill. And because the language is vague enough, it leads to the possibility that maybe that is the case. It's not definitive that is how the law will work in practice, but that it's vague enough that it will cause a chilling effect in in classrooms, and that teachers will just err on the side of caution and just not mention anything about gender or sexual orientation in the classrooms out of fear of, if I say the wrong thing, then I'm opening up a can of worms to be sued. And so better safe than sorry, and just squash any conversation about this.
Exposing themselves to prosecution, but that's not the scenario that people are being told. They're being told that these kids are going to be recruited into, it kind of almost merges into QAnon stuff.
Groomed.
But groomed, yes. But he, so that is, he's done that. He's done the critical race thing. He also just stole basically a couple of congressional seats for the Republicans. He basically blew up the map
the
that the
gerrymander
Republican
thing.
legislature drew, and he substituted a map
didn't
where he just
go
grabbed a couple more seats. Now there'll be constitutional challenges over racial gerrymandering and so on. But he faced down his own party legislature.
Twice he faced him down, David. I mean, they brought two maps that they loved. They said not enough.
Yes. He is at, right now as we sit here, he has a 72% favorable rating among Republicans. That's pretty big for a governor of a state, right? That
And 55 overall with Democrats and Independents.
I mean, he's a really interesting character, but I don't know whether he is actually playing for the nomination in 2024, and he may go for it, or just preparing himself. He's going to get reelected. He could easily resurface as a candidate in 28 as well, but he's worth watching.
And I'll say this too. I mean, it's not just that people in Florida are noticing. I'm on a flight Thursday night to go to North Carolina, working on my Hacks newsletter. Guy next to me notices toward the very end of the flight, and I got a hat and a mask on, so he doesn't know that I'm now conducting a Republican focus group. And the two people that he mentioned, Trump and DeSantis.
Yeah, DeSantis is the default candidate right now.
Loves Trump, but when I asked him, okay, if it came down to Trump or DeSantis, he smiled and didn't want to give me an answer. By the way, very also convinced the election was completely stolen.
Yeah, that's your average Republican, right?
Yeah, so it fits the bill, and like I said, it's no mistake that he goes on Fox repeatedly, often, and spreads this, and it's why. If it's not Trump, and I agree with you, David, right now, the relative strength of Trump, I'd still put my last $5 on. But if it's going to be somebody else, that person right now looks like Ron DeSantis.
You got to go a long way to get to your last $5. But McKinnon
says who? Says you.
You know that DeSantis, I mean, what he's displayed, what we know is he's got big brass balls. He's also got a short fuse, the flip side of that.
Yeah.
And so, you and I have both been, everybody on this show has been through a few presidential races. So you understand the process and how basically it is a long oral exam where the spotlight is on you at all times. So, while we're talking about how formidable he is with all of the stuff that he is doing within the Republican Party, what we don't know is how he'd hold up in the process. I saw him yell at a bunch of school kids for wearing masks.
That's upsetting.
Yeah, that's a great question, David. First of all, let me just say that it really is remarkable what he has done, given the significant field of potential Republican wannabes, but beyond Trump, right? I mean, you got a lot: Cruz, Hawley, Cotton, Haley. I mean, it's a pretty formidable Pence. I mean, it's a pretty formidable crew, and DeSantis beats the crap out of all of them by a long shot. So what he has done is pretty remarkable to come as far as he has. But to your point, David, he has not really been under the hot national spotlight or the spotlight of a presidential election, which burns like a microwave, and he rolls really tightly. And when I say that, I mean it's kind of him and his wife and like one or two other people.
So the Pence thing doesn't really surprise me, given the fact that during 1-6 they were chanting "Hang Mike Pence." I think Pence is probably just gonna take a step back for a little while and not try to court the MAGA base. Just my uneducated 2 cents here. You don't really want to try to curtsy favor with the people who are chanting for your death.
And he does not condone any dissent from anybody, anywhere, anytime. And as you guys know so well, running a governor's race is a whole lot different than running a presidential race, and you can't run it with 4 people. And so there's some liabilities there.
I mean, if Trump's the model, he may think that I don't have to. I can do it, but no one knows. No one knows. Like I didn't know, and Gibbs didn't know how Barack Obama, who was really, not tested in the national spotlight, how he would handle that process. We don't know how DeSantis will handle that process because they're throwing fastballs at your head all the time in that process, and he's not going to like it.
And his whole thing is, I don't back down, and that will be tested pretty heavily in a presidential. And like I said, he's got a fuse, and he kind of likes to blow the fuse. But when that happens on a national platform rather than down in the Panhandle, that could be a whole different deal.
Gibbs, who apparently blew a fuse after January 6th was Kevin McCarthy, and Mitch McConnell blew fuses over what happened on January 6th, and Trump's rolling it, and then quickly got in line, and now we've got...
the electrician visited and fixed the fuses, from what I could tell.
Yeah, or short-circuited them, I don't know. But now, our buddy J. Mart and Alex Burns from the Times have this book, This Shall Not Pass. It was interesting what happened last week, because they wrote in their book that McCarthy had talked openly about asking Trump to resign and condemning what Trump had done with his, among his colleagues and so on, and he vehemently denied it. And then they set him up, man. They had tape.
They had the receipts.
They had the tapes.
Roll the tape.
The only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should resign. That would be my take, but I don't think he would take it, but I don't know.
So what he was talking about was impeachment, that he thought impeachment would pass and that Trump should resign. And there was obviously more to it. I wonder how, what do you
even after they went on TV and played the tape. So
yeah, we just talked about how Trump will probably be the nominee of the party again. I don't think lying is an unpardonable sin.
Not just that, David. Not that it's not unpardonable, but at this point in the Republican Trump party,
absolutely
you get
not
rewarded for lying, and you pay a price for telling the truth.
Right, there's no consequences to this. There's no, we may talk about
100%.
that. Are there going to be any consequences to all the texting around January 6th? Is Mark Meadows going to pay some sort of price? Is Marjorie Taylor Greene going to pay some sort of price?
How do I only have two of these now?
The one thing I would say to our last conversation, DeSantis may get pushed. I doubt it'll be by the media, because he'll use that.
He just
as
deleted
a
bunch of
maybe
these.
his other opponents. But I think right now, to Mark's point, if you don't lie, you're not cool in the Republican Party.
That's kind of the purity test now, is it whether you lie or not.
Right, but the question is, how does Trump play this? Because now he's got Kevin McCarthy completely by the balls.
I think he plays it by currying more favor, David.
Yeah.
I think he's like, okay, Kevin, well, I may let you off the hook here, but you just put a bunch more in my bank, buddy.
And we know that a week after McCarthy made the statements that we heard on that tape and other statements, that he flew down to Mar-a-Lago and kissed the ring. So he knows which way the wind is blowing, and he is going to adjust accordingly. But
I don't think he just kissed his ring, but that's aside. Yeah, that's just an aside.
Yeah,
that's where he started. He started at the ring.
Yeah, I think that the former president wears his rings on the hem of his on the rear hem of his jacket. So
Axios had an interesting report last night that Republicans are getting ready,
God,
not just as we presumed,
stupid
at some point to try to impeach Joe Biden, but also to impeach a significant number of his cabinet, starting with the Homeland Security Secretary. And I think people have surmised this is the beginning of the ransom that Donald Trump is going to use, just so people understand. Once in our nation's history has a cabinet secretary been impeached, and now it looks like it's not just going to be one, but many. And so this is the price that Trump is going to hold over McCarthy's head. And we saw this with J.D. Vance's endorsement in Ohio. He's on tape saying he's a never Trumper, and Trump seems to like the idea of, hey, you know what, you're against me, but now you answer to me. That's his strength.
Not just a never Trumper, he compared him to Hitler.
Yeah. But he meant it in a nice way.
Yeah.
He meant it in a nice way. I mean, in fairness, this thing about impeachment, just as an aside, and I think I've said this here before. One thing, if I were the Democrats, what I would be exploring is, what people. I think the biggest thing that people are sensing now is a feeling of sort of chaos, that things are kind of out of control. How's it going to be exactly when Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan and those guys come along and their focus is going to be impeach the president, impeach cabinet members, hold investigation?
I think the balance here is going to be, or the opportunity for Democrats who are so far down the well right now, is that just there's no sort of governor on what the Republicans are doing. And in fact, the impetus is to see just how far they can push it. So the pendulum's just going to swing so damn far out there. And like you said, start impeaching cabinet members at a certain point. I mean, and they'll all be rewarded for that. But at a certain point, we were hoping to get away from the Biden chaos, and this chaos is like way crazier than that.
Yeah, I mean, they're chaos party, basically. They're saying we are promising, here's our platform, chaos. We're going to go after the president. We're going to go after cabinet members. We're going to have investigations every day. And there is a chance for Democrats to say, hey, how about like the stuff that is impacting on people's lives? Shouldn't we spend a few minutes on that? Or are we just going to have, bloody warfare in Washington where nothing gets done? Because that's what you're voting for.
DeSantis is betting, as we talked about a second ago, is betting that all of these things and his persona age well, right? And that we certainly don't know. And it may age well in a Republican primary. The question is, how will it age well in those suburban voters that switched in 2016, from Trump to Biden? Secondly, I would say, look, I think this is what gives Democrats hope, knowing that the shellacking is coming, right? In 1994, it happened to Clinton, and he gets reelected in 1996 because he plays off of a Republican Congress. The shellacking in 2010 ends up with Barack Obama getting reelected in 2012 because he changes his message and runs, as a referendum on the alternative rather than a referendum on himself.
Well, to that point, did you guys see Ron Plain's tweet after the French election on Sunday? Somebody wrote a column, pointing out that Macron had a 36% approval rating and won a landslide in France, and Plain tweeted that out, and for the obvious purpose of saying, you know what, you guys are all focused on his approval rating, but as Biden always says, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And that's what happened in France. I mean, Macron was unpopular. He was just less unpopular than the neo-fascist opponent that he drew.
To that point, David, I'll just say that the thing of all the polling we've seen recently, and, we get a new update every day, but the thing, and nothing is all that surprising, but I was really surprised at a recent poll that, Biden, as unpopular as he is, and you don't get much more unpopular than he is right now, somebody did a poll that if the election were today and the candidates were Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump Jr., Tom Cotton, Biden beat every one of them.
Yeah.
I would say, as it relates to that tweet, David, that's, I'm reminded of that Geico commercial where the lady says, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works, as it relates to the upcoming midterm elections, right?
Oh, for sure.
That may work in a one-on-one contest, but I thought the equivalency that Ron and others on Twitter on Sunday afternoon were trying to say, look, Democrats can still win in 2022. And look, listeners have heard me say this. I keep waiting for the fight to be picked in order to try to change this into a little bit more of a choice rather than a referendum. And the fight doesn't seem to be coming.
There are some signs that the White House understands what the score is there, because there was a piece last week saying they're bringing our old colleague Anita Dunn back. They're bringing a guy over, a kind of a wartime communications guy, to come over to the White House counsel's office in anticipation of all the subpoenas they're going to be getting from the new Republican Congress. I think they know which way it's going. Dave Wasserman from Cook, who I think is sort of the gold standard in terms of watching these congressional races, just moved 8 more Democratic seats in the Republican direction, either seats that were safe that are now leaning Democrat or seats that were leaning Democrat that are now toss-ups. I don't know anyone, maybe you guys do, who kind of thinks this thing is headed in any direction other than like a shellacking again.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I think the only real question now is, if you won by 10 points as a Democrat 2 years ago, or 12 points, where's the line in which you feel like you're now underwater? Because, we saw this, and we talked about it last week on the show. We saw this sort of 10-point or so shift in the 2021 election results. The real question is just how many seats can Republicans put into play? They won, they came out of 2020 actually picking up seats in a year in which Joe Biden gets elected president. So I think many people kind of baked into their prediction, well, they already began to pick up some of the easier turf. And maybe the overall number in 2022 won't be so large, but it certainly looks like even with the absence of anything that would have, any big event, that the environment continues to deteriorate for Democrats.
Well, not just deteriorate, but I think people, realize that the House is gone. But I think people were sort of hanging on to a sense maybe the Democrats could hold on to the Senate. But now I think the wave's getting so big that it could wash away, seats that were really in the Democrats' target zone to hang on to. Maybe not now.
Yeah, Arizona, Georgia, you have to start worrying.
Yep, Pennsylvania.
You have to start worrying about those seats. Look, on the House, if I'm McCarthy, I want to expand the caucus as much as I possibly can, because the smaller the caucus, the more he is totally at the mercy of the Freedom Caucus. So, I think he's going to play very big in this. So I've been thinking about these midterms, and this happened in 2010. I remember Obama calling me on election night in 2010 and he said, and he starts asking me about various members, Murphy in Pennsylvania, Perriello in Virginia, and he's going down the list of all these young members who he thought highly of, and I'm going, gone, 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 and at the end he said, we just lost the future of our party, and he was really, that was the thing that he was most dispirited about. I know, McKinnon, in one of your many iterations, you were with this group No Labels.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who are going to go down on both sides. I mean, there are moderate Republicans like Fred Upton who are leaving. There are, and you're going to lose on the Democratic side a lot of these sort of so-called problem solvers, moderate Democrats, because they're in swing districts, and you can be, if the president is 12 points underwater, and he's at 38 or 40% approval rating, and you're in a +3 Democratic district, it's pretty hard. The math doesn't work out for you. That +3 was when Biden was more popular.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, let's think about what all this means for the future of both parties. First of all, any Republican now at this point with Upton out, I think all but maybe one who voted to impeach Trump or voted for the committee are gone.
Oh, it's already
they all just they saw the writing on the wall and they're not even running. So that tells you about what who's going to get elected on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, not only, I mean, to your point about when you were talking about the future of the party being going down during the election of Obama,
rockets because I'm not making any of that.
Not only are people going to lose, people are just not even going to get in the fight. People like Stephanie Murphy.
I was going to say exactly
in Florida, who we had on our show a couple of weeks ago. I mean, talk about a fantastic candidate and somebody that I just thought, oh my God, if this is the future of the Democratic Party, there's some hope here for the Democrats. And then she just says, you know what, I'm out.
We should point out, just because I don't want Heilman and your colleagues to freak out. We should point out she didn't quit after appearing on your show. It wasn't your show that killed her career. She quit before that, right? So we should make that clear.
Yeah, but after the show, she said no public service anywhere ever.
But to your point, McKinnon, she's somebody who in a tough year in 2016 beats a sitting Republican, is a blue dog Democrat, which there can't be many of left anymore. A group that formed not many weeks after the 1994 shellacking for Democrats in Congress, and young, telegenic, and
great story, personal story,
right? And somebody who now is walking off the playing field. Largely because they don't feel like they have a place. I think you're going to watch coming out of 2022. You're going to be. We shouldn't. The spotlight will be
upsetting
on what Republicans and sort of what they add to the Freedom Caucus. Don't mistake that the very liberal side, the Progressive Caucus, but also the Squad is looking to add members.
Yeah, they're going to. They're going to.
Yeah, the real challenge is going to be that the people that represent the parties in Congress, are not emblematic of either party's actual base. I believe, certainly in the Democratic side.
And by the way, just back to the No Labels experience.
Explain what No Labels is.
Well, No Labels is an organization started in 2011 that was designed to kind of bridge the gap, bring people together, create more bipartisan dialogue, more problem solving between the parties, just really more bipartisanship. And what we realized very quickly was that if we were trying to be a voice for the middle in Congress, there wasn't much middle left, and that everybody had been pushed to the extremes. And there's a magazine in Washington that does every couple of years does a study about how much crossover there is in Congress. In other words, where are there sort of progressive Republicans that overlap with conservative Democrats? And when they did that study 20 years ago, 224 members of Congress overlapped. The last time they did the study, 4 people overlapped. So that kind of tells you that there's 4 people left in the middle of Congress.
And my point is, I thought the 2018 class, particularly among women, there's some really great women who came into Congress. Spanberger in Virginia and Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan come to mind, Mikey Sherrill in Jersey, and a bunch of these people are going to lose this time. So what you're going to have, the main point I wanted to make was what you're going to have in 2023 is probably the most polarized Congress we've seen. There's going to be, the middle is going to be much smaller. The caucuses are going to be much more ideological.
Yeah. By the way, David, one other member who's leaving, who I think you probably know because she's from Illinois, Sherry Bustos, who was a terrific member.
Terrific. Terrific. Who fits solidly in that class.
Yeah, she won in a plus 10 Trump district as a Democrat.
And these are people who, by definition, learn how to work across the aisle and learn to work with people.
Exactly.
You know, they operate under the theory that I'm here to get stuff done, and I'm going to work with anybody who's willing to work with me. Now
you get penalized for that.
You get primaried because of that.
Okay, let's take a break right here for a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
It is incredibly depressing hearing.
You know, Gibbs, they say you are what you eat.
Give the same
I don't know.
kind
I don't
of
even
argument
confront
against
that. But how you
that.
feel is often about
I feel a
what
lot of
you-
left
what
people
you taste,
throw
what you
against
put
the
in your
Republicans.
body. That's why I'm so happy we get to talk about athletic
It's just a
greens.
constant
So
race
talk about it, Gibbs.
further
This is a
and
product
further
you
right.
use literally every day.
That's hard.
Athletic
Fuck.
greens,
So
you don't
depressing.
have a lot of time, but you want better gut health, more energy. You want to optimize your immune system. You hate taking pills and vitamins. I sure do.
No.
And you want a supplement that actually tastes great. And you want to see
Poop
what all
now.
the hype about athletic greens is all about. And
What
so
is this?
I
Uranium.
love it, but our executive producer, Allison, has been using it too. And Allison, what about it, huh?
It's excellent.
There you go. It's excellent. You know why? Gibbs, tell them why.
With one delicious scoop of athletic greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day off right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy recovery, focus, and for you, aging. All of those things in just one glass.
I take a double actually for that, but just the things that are real quality of life things, digestion, energy, all of that.
If you're like us and you're on the road,
Gibbs, no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out. We saw it with the Gingrich Congress that they can misbehave in a way that strengthens Democrats going into 2024 potentially. But the cost of a very polarized Congress and a majority that has its main mission to kind of seek vengeance and retribution against the president is going to be enormous for the country. It really worries me, and it makes me sad to think about the people who aren't going to be there in 2 years. I mean, I know I'm veering into. If Murphy were here, he'd probably yell at us for not being hacky enough on this.
You would yell at us for not being hacky enough. Let's just be clear as you get into your League of Women Voters spiel here.
Yes, that's true. Gibbs is still ouchy. This was an exchange we had like a year and a half ago, and he's still ouchy about this because I accused him of being a League of Women Voters kind of guy. Here.
My mother was a League of Women Voters, so I took it deeply personally, Axelrod.
Well, now I know where it comes from.
See?
But I think we should be really deeply concerned for our democracy. And I don't look, I think people have different points of view. If that were the case, we'd have one party and everybody would agree on everything. I don't expect that. But when the incentives go out of the system to cooperate, and all you have are people from districts where they can't lose except in a primary, becomes that much harder to govern. But one guy who has resisted this, whether he may not be everybody's cup of tea or cup of coal or oil, is Joe Manchin. And there was a poll out yesterday measuring how people's favorable rating has changed over the last year, and Manchin was the number one guy whose numbers have improved in his home state. He's now
Interesting.
He's now at 57%. He was at 40% a year ago. He's at 57% in West Virginia, and you know why? 69% approval rating among Republicans.
Wow.
A couple of other numbers that are important in that. He's on the ballot in 2024, and he sits as the senator from a state where Joe Biden got 29% of the vote. So, it's always, when you look at, you don't have to like what Joe Manchin is doing if you're a Democratic activist. There's a method to the madness.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
This is not, and whether they're sending the vice president to do TV in West Virginia and poke him, or AOC sends out a bunch of tweets, I can only presume that all that is done is bolster him every step of the way for almost 2 years now.
I think he would take his campaign money and put AOC on tour in the state.
Absolutely.
That'd be a good investment of money. Listen, I have real questions about. I mean, he still gets $500,000 a year from this coal business that his son now runs, while he's sitting in Congress, sitting as chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, and passing judgment on environmental legislation. That's a concern, and I don't know how that happens. But I also think that Manchin represents his state. And I remember back in when Pete Buttigieg, people forget this history, ran for chair of the Democratic National Committee for a minute and lost. He came to the IOP afterwards. He was on a panel after the whatever election that was, I guess it was 2016, and he talked about the future of the party. And some kid stood up and said, why should we support a guy like Joe Manchin, who doesn't reflect anything that we believe in? And Buttigieg said, well, I guess I'd say to you, I'm for the most progressive candidate who can win. And if you have a candidate in West Virginia who you think can do better than Manchin and is closer to your view, then support him. But I think you're going to have a hard time finding that candidate. And, Manchin, in 2000, and Democrats are worried about the Senate this year. In 2024, a presidential year, they've got John Tester up in Montana. They've got Sherrod Brown up in Ohio. They've got Manchin up in West Virginia. Based on what you see right now, you'd say Manchin is the only one who'll probably survive.
Well, and Dave, just to put a point on it,
and I wouldn't bet on him.
I hear all the grumbling, of course, on the Democratic side about Manchin, and I just have to remind my friends to say, listen, he won in a year in which Trump got 70% of the vote there.
Yep, 71.
And there's no other Democrat that could have or would have won. And so you would have. So your only option is a Republican senator. And as much as you dislike Joe Manchin, he was still like the 50th vote or 51st on your Supreme Court nominee.
Well, and every court nominee, and on Build Back Better, and a whole bunch of other things. So it's easy to say expel him, drive him over. If Joe Manchin, and he easily could, if he decided, hey, I'm walking across the aisle, I'll just join their caucus. Mitch McConnell's majority leader.
Right.
And then you get no judges, and
the whole thing shuts down.
Yeah. So you have to be really, really thoughtful about how you evaluate this guy. One correction there, and I rarely am in a position to correct you, McKinnon, but he ran in 2018, not 2020. So he only won by 3 points in 2018. So to Gibbs's point, you'd think he'd be in jeopardy in 2024. He may not be now. He may actually be in a position where I always thought he can't run for re-election. Trump won that state by 40 points. And he still may not be able to run for re-election. But when you're sitting there with a 69% approval rating, now Trump hasn't started carving on him yet. And so that number could go down again. But him dissenting from Biden and getting beaten up by the left, to your point, Gibbs, that's been nothing but nothing but
good for him.
To Manchin.
In-kind campaign contributions. I mean, you ought to be reporting them on his FEC report. No, I think it'll be interesting to see, David, to your point, in 2024, how hard does Mitch McConnell look for a Republican? My guess is pretty damn hard. And my guess is that you're going to see, to Mark's point, a lot of discussion about Supreme Court justices, judicial nominations, and other votes. And look, Manchin can be crafty, right? Before he voted for Judge Jackson, he essentially killed the nomination, a Biden nomination at the Fed. And I have no doubt that he was thinking to himself, you know what I need? I need a series of headlines that show me being really hard on this president before I have to give the vote that I'm going to make on the Supreme Court. And I think, he's navigated West Virginia well. It's a great whitewater rafting state if you haven't been. He's navigated that river well. I just don't know if there's a waterfall at the end of it. Did you like that?
Yes, very athletic of you.
I feel like I'm now West Virginia Tourism Bureau.
But I just thought he lives on a houseboat in Washington, and I just thought he sits there and he calculates what's best for the country and votes his conscience, and that's what he says. So you're saying there's calculation involved?
I'm saying there's politics in politics. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys something before we get to questions. In Ukraine, with the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State visited, and Gibbs, you and I were talking about this before the show.
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense says our mission is to disable the Russian army so that they can never do this again. The day after that, like today, Lavrov, the foreign minister, makes a public pronouncement that we're closer to nuclear war than people think. I'm old enough to remember the last time we were ducking under desks in the classroom.
Me too. I remember the air raids. Ducking cover under our desk.
But let me ask you guys, just getting back to politics, Mark Penn wrote a piece in the Times, and he said that people...
where's this going?
No. This is forget about my feelings about Penn. The column was,
Damn, I was hoping for a stem.
It was the usual tablets, from down from the mountains about what Democrats need to do to win. But he did say, people are feeling very uneasy, which I think is true. I think that there is this sense of chaos out there. But he really featured, and now they're worried about nuclear war. Do you think people are worried about nuclear war? Is that really? Do you think that has risen? He cited some poll, and I have to go back and find it. Is this adding to the sense of chaos and concern and fear that people feel about the times in which we live?
Well, I think it's just one more domino in the concerns about Biden generally. I've been surprised, frankly, guys, the extent to which, as I've gone around the country and doing the show, that Ukraine is just generally not on people's screen. I think that's mostly because the domestic issues are so hot.
When you're at the gas station and watching the numbers go up, you're not thinking about Ukraine, even though actually it is somewhat related. But or when you go to the store, or when you try and buy a house and it's hard to find one that you can afford because they're all inflated. And I think people quite naturally think about the things that touch on their lives. But I think the virus helped create this sense of unease that still is with us. And I've said before, Biden's political problem isn't about any one particular issue. It's a sense that things are sort of chaotic and he's not really in command. And that's a hard thing to overcome because I think a lot of it's performance related.
Well, and the point about Penn, David, was Penn sort of said, all the things that have collapsed on Biden are like, everything possible. You sort of go out throughout history and see what presidents have faced. He's facing them all.
Right. On Ukraine, for example, I think he's done a really credible job. He's held the alliance together. I think he's done really, really a good job. But all people see on TV is continued death and destruction. To the extent they care about it, it doesn't look like we've got control of the situation there. So
I think certainly, this is why even before the shooting ever started, Biden always began discussions about Ukraine, reminding voters that our troops weren't going over there. And it's clearly played into the calculus of not getting into a no-fly zone, which would put our troops directly in combat with the Russians. But I think, look, to your point on unease and chaos, with Ukraine, it's probably only going to continue to increase. Clearly, I personally think Biden seems to be thinking and feeling differently about Ukraine over the course of the last sort of 8 to 10 weeks of this invasion. A war criminal, a butcher, genocide. I think increasingly his gaffe in Warsaw may have not as much been a gaffe, but a foreshadowing of where he's going. But the challenge is going to be, to your point, David, that rhetoric is likely to increase because the U.S. is got to hope at some point that there's a negotiation for peace, and
you can't afford futility.
No, but in order to do that, you're going to have to up the rhetoric so that Putin decides, okay, you know what, I'll take this territory.
Risk that, but there's risk associated. Last point on this, and we should get to our committed, brilliant listeners who have questions. But on this chaos issue, one of those headaches, McKinnon, is the border. McCarthy and crew were down there yesterday, I guess. And that's likely to kick up in the next couple of months.
Not only kick up, David, but to your point, actually, Republicans, J.D. Vance is a good example. It's like, why the hell should we care about Ukraine? But there are others, I forget who said it, but it's like, why are we caring about the border of Ukraine and Russia when we have what's going on our border, Joe Biden? Let's pay attention to our own border. And that is a situation that is such a powerful Republican talking point, and it's bad and getting worse, and there's just like nothing in sight that suggests that situation is going to get any better.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself, why does anybody want this job?
I've been saying that for a while. It's like, why would anybody want to be president of the free world in the current circumstances?
Yeah, you get a house, you get a plane, and I get all that, but man, what a
pile of headaches comes with it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, for a Democratic president, the border situation is just a no-win situation.
And it's certainly, it's going to play out a bunch this week. We're going to see it. The head of Homeland Security is on Capitol Hill for 3 hearings. He's
the guy they want to impeach.
Right. He's going to get beat up by Democrats who are on the ballot, who don't want to see the pictures that we've seen really for the last 2 administrations. And Republicans feel like they've got a free target. I think the one thing that may actually bail Biden out on this is not having to pick because a federal judge who temporarily blocked the administration from lifting the order. The courts may actually solve the political problem in the near term for Biden in a way in which he doesn't have to further split Democrats by picking between endangered 2022
friggin' fast at making stuff.
Election seekers and Hispanic members who are on the other side.
Literally can't pass
Jeff,
things
hit it.
fast enough. Man, that is an upgrade.
A little homage to Mike Murphy.
That really needs to
Robert
exist
Gibbs,
in here. Is like
Eric
belt speed.
asks, why don't we just
that,
have all the
I would
primaries on
pour
the
a
same
fuck
day?
ton of
Then you'll
science
actually
into.
get an idea of which candidate performs
Can I
well on the national
upgrade-
level, and without all the
Can I
gamesmanship
upgrade
that will
arm
inevitably
grabby?
come
I
from picking
cannot
any state to have
upgrade arm
to act
grabby
as a weather vane.
indefinitely.
That this is the DNC
Okay.
is trying to decide the order of primaries now, so this is a topical
Fuck,
question.
man, yeah,
Eric,
belt speed
I'm just going to say your
is
question sounds
the
like an
main
existential problem for the
bottleneck I
Hacks on Tap
constantly seem
podcast.
to
I just
have.
want you to know that,
yeah, because we're all about gamesmanship here, yeah.
What exactly are we going to talk about for 15 weeks if we don't have this rolling cascade of primaries and caucuses?
Yeah.
Eric, get with the program, man.
Come on.
Look, there have been people that have talked about this idea of a national primary. Obviously, what it would do is put a lot of emphasis, probably a lot more emphasis on raising money, even more so than it already is in this process. Because if you're running in California, Florida, Texas, and every other state all on the same day, you'd have to have a lot of money. You're not going to have a candidate like Jimmy Carter isn't going to win Iowa because he's shaking hands and writing thank you notes. But David, you sort of walked into this question by talking about this process now, and Iowa is, I think, in real danger of not only not being first, but not being in the top 4. And the DNC has asked states to essentially compete for those top 4 positions. New Hampshire, we know, is probably not going to change. It's albeit not very representative of what America looks like, but they've got a state law that my guess is they're not going to violate. Nevada, I think, is a real possibility to move up from sort of third to first, because it's got a population that looks a lot more like the Democratic electorate does writ large, with a larger Black and Hispanic population. And then South Carolina, which, we know from our experience.
What about Michigan, man? They want to make a play.
Michigan could be good. New Jersey could be good. I think you've got to add a mid-size or a little bit larger soon-to-be swing state. I mean, the great thing about Iowa, David, when we were there in 2008, was it was a swing state. You're out there. I would look at a place. Michigan could be that place. North Carolina could be that place.
Yeah, North Carolina, yeah.
I think something that looks like America.
Just to the larger question, this is a profoundly bad idea, Eric, because it will lock in the front runners. It will lock in the candidates with money. Barack Obama never would have been elected president if there was one national primary. He had to have a testing ground.
We lost by 20 points.
Yeah, so the crucible of a long primary campaign is when you find out what these candidates have. And McKinnon was through a primary in 2000, and McCain profited from early victory in New Hampshire, and Bush profited from taking that punch and coming back. And you learn a lot about candidates in this process, and it's the only way that people, average Americans, actually get to interact with candidates is because we have this primary system where candidates have to meet individually with people. So anyway,
still
Eric,
nowhere
you're
near
obviously a very
enough.
bright guy because you listen to Hacks on Tap. This isn't a good idea. McKinnon, this is the issue of the day.
What is
I guess.
the bottleneck
we have oligarchs
here?
in America, and this is about one of them.
Blue
I haven't heard you discuss Elon Musk
Blue
and his bid for
chips
Twitter,
are
and I'd love to hear your
just
take.
small
What drives
production.
me nuts about Elon's free speech and public square blather is the fantasy that his imagined public square is equal. I notice it's usually rich white dudes who yammer on about limits on their free speech because it seems to me money buys you a whole lot more of it. You're a rich white dude. What do you say?
Well,
Wow.
I'm the guy who wrote a column in 2009 that Twitter was a crazy, ridiculous business model, and it'd be ridiculous for anybody to invest any money in Twitter. That it was a bad business model. So, by the way, McKinnon is Gaelic for really lousy investor.
Yes.
But I think this could be a classic example of the dog catching the car. It's like, it seems great in theory, but he's put out some ideas like, ensuring that everybody on the platform is an actual human being, and how he executes that is going to be, and he's going to find out why it's so hard. And so I think that this is one of those things that in theory, he loved, and I think it's going to be overnight a huge headache. And I think he's going to be pretty quickly thinking, how do I get this chain off my axle?
Content moderation on these platforms, as you mentioned, McKinnon, it's just enormously difficult. And what I worry about, I think what we all worry about, is does free speech also include fact-free speech? And that's the sort of disinformation pool that we're already swimming in. Interestingly, Trump said he wasn't going back on Twitter because he's got his own thing that doesn't work.
This is actually not good
That'll
for
be the
Trump
interesting
because Trump
part.
was hoping to gather up all the alienated right-wingers who were mad at Twitter for throwing him and others off and have them come to his, and now likely Musk will allow all of them back, and that's but the one idea he has that I really like is that everyone who does 1 million tweets gets a free trip to the moon on SpaceX, which I think is going to be a huge promotional thing.
Yeah. Trigva asks,
Why do
how
I have red
important is a
bullets on
slogan
here?
for a presidential campaign? Are slogans like, yes, we can, make America great again, garniture on a cake, or an important part of the cake itself? If a candidate runs against Trump, what would be a good slogan? Answer this, X, while I Google garniture.
Yes. I mean, that is, I didn't even know that was a word.
Unclear if it is.
Yeah.
I've tried it in Wordle and it didn't work.
This used to drive. I mean, I was the one who, yes, we can was something that I came up with for Obama's Senate campaign that lived on, but
which he hated.
yeah. But I have to say, I always thought that the painful exercise of getting to a slogan was the test of whether you could reduce the message of your campaign to its irreducible core. And I think that's actually a really good exercise. The campaigns that are generally in distress are the ones that roll out 7 different slogans, in a campaign. So I think it's more than garniture on the cake. It essentially tells you what the cake is made of. In that sense, I think it's really important. But McKinnon, what would your if you were running against Trump and assuming that crazy is bad is a bad slogan?
Well, first of all, really when you think about slogan, what you should think about in terms of what's effective is what you want for your campaign is a clear, compelling rationale in the simplest way you can articulate that. And so slogans don't mean anything unless it gets to the core rationale of why you're running. And that's why Make America Great Again was so brilliant, because
it was off for so
whether or not you
long.
agreed with it, you knew what it was, and you knew why Trump was running. And that's a coded thing that people can read a lot into, but basically it was saying, I'm kind of afraid of the future for once in America. Let's take a step back to the old days.
Let's give credit where credit is due. It was Ronald Reagan who first used that slogan during the 1980
That's right.
campaign. So Trump gets a lot of credit for it.
Well,
so.
he copyrighted it the day after the 2012 election, so that was pretty smart on his part. Basically,
good on him.
Biden's mantra was really you just make America sane again. It's just like I'm not Trump, and maybe some version we'll have to see. But
I also think too that your part about simplistic and rationale is really important. I think also the key is a contrast. It has to be subtle, right? It's not usually something you're beating somebody over the head with. But change you can believe in was not well. It was subtle, but it wasn't subtle. But it also was a good contrast with who Obama was running against in the Democratic primary, right? Particularly around things like Iraq. It's not just, hey, where do you think your candidacy sits, but how does that push off of others?
Exactly right.
That is such an interesting process to get that, because it does force you to think about your fundamental arguments. Relative to the question about Trump seriously, I think the thing that people are going to want to confront is, do they want to go back to that? And so I don't know what the slogan is, but I do think the notion of the future and the past is important, but probably more so if Biden is not the candidate, that will work than if he is the candidate. But I do think America, if Trump is the candidate, is going to have to confront that question. So there's a whole process. The slogan is the end of the process. It's not a disconnected. There's a whole process. I remember the long meetings and really talking through our research and what we were trying to express and what we were trying to get to. So it's not just like, well, that sounds good, let's do that.
Oh, and it's a painful process. I remember going through it with Ann Richards, man. What's my message?
And the slogan doesn't always come at the beginning of the race. I mean, I think people are like, and Democrats have this like, we can't put our stuff on a bumper sticker. Well, it takes a little time. I mean, you got to get into a little bit of the back and forth of this to understand that your slogan, again, works inside of the campaign and contrasts with the person that you're up against.
Boys, we're out of time here. McKinnon, you're on break now, right? At the circus.
Yeah, we're taking a little break, but love kicking it with you guys as usual, and I'll be tuning in all summer to keep up so that I know what I'm talking about when I get back to the circus in the fall.
And we'll all see you in the we'll have you back, of course, but we'll also see you in the fall. And Gibbs, I'll see you very soon.
Looking forward to it. And also to our buddy Murphy, feel better. People miss his cutting humor. So
hey guys, so get better quickly. Hope your wheel gets better. And now that the three of us have a Colorado connection, let's do a retreat out here.
Absolutely. Well, and as to Murphy, I think he had a little knee surgery, and all for the purpose of being able to kick ass better. So he'll only be better when he comes back, and hopefully that will be as soon as next week. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Carry on regardless.
Talk soon.
This is not what I would call ideal. But it is 9:30. I have been going at it long enough. I have other shit I need to do before I call it a night. So I think we're going to call it there. My factory is still as inefficient as it ever was. But then again, that's the name of the game. The factory is never actually done. It always must grow. So, good stream overall, I think. Definitely want to do more of this conservative media commentary stuff. Maybe we'll do more like news article related stuff as time goes on. But until next time, hope y'all enjoyed the show. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye. Maybe. How do I stop streaming?